What's going on? How is everybody? Hope everyone's good. How is this camera? This camera is, I think it's super bright. I don't know how like the settings on it so far. There goes Vita.
Hey,
What's up, Vita? How you feeling?
I feel all right. It pays to have this notification thing on YouTube. Because as
Yeah.
soon as I heard it, I clicked right in.
So you heard that before you even saw my text because I sent you a text, but you got.
I'm seeing it right now.
Actually, you
Well,
know what? It's actually good you're on here because I just realized I forgot my plug, so I
oh
need to
wow.
go get the plug so you can keep people entertained for like
Okay.
a couple
Did you
seconds.
give us a title?
No, the only thing I put up is a title. Uh, creative cargo cult, but I'm gonna explain that
Yeah, I
once
don't
we
even
get
know what that
going.
means.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
All right, you guys, what's up? The Champagne Sharks. I'm Vita Star, aka Big Star Loke, as dubbed by Mario. um, Hope you guys are good. We actually just recorded a podcast. I know some people actually hit me up recently, within the past week or so, mostly because of T wreaking havoc on the timeline, um, along with Nina tearing folks up right now. They were going in on T because he pointed out like a lot of what people are calling innovative and game changing in regards to Black television. And in this particular example he gave, we were talking about Insecure. And it was interesting to see all the backlash T got on the Champagne Sharks account.
Oh yeah, people were pretty upset about that one, and I wasn't even saying that. I dislike the show. I mean, some seasons I like less than others, but
Mhm.
overall, it's a competent show. I just think the people don't change fast enough. And I think the creators realize that because from what I understand, I didn't watch season 5, but they just fast tracked everybody's evolution. I was told, and a lot of it even happened off screen. So
See,
it's
that's an
like,
HBO thing too.
okay,
HBO tends to do. I feel like HBO does that in their last seasons of shows. Sometimes they tend to like rush shit,
yeah,
um, and it's kind of bad for Insecure because they took off a year, didn't they?
yeah, yeah. They took a break so she can shoot all those movies and everything. But from what I was told, right, a lot of stuff happened like off screen. So Molly came back like a matured person. I was told, but
So we
all
didn't
those
see.
4 years of therapy made no headway. But then suddenly, the start of season 5, off screen, I was told, um,
Yeah,
she was now a more mature person. Somebody who watches the show might be able to correct me. I don't.
yeah.
I
I
don't know.
haven't watched the last season yet. I tend to wait till all the fanfare is over, so it's not clouding my judgment as I watch a show. Um, because you guys know I like Insecure. Everybody
Yeah,
shits
yeah.
on
Vita Lex
him.
insecure.
But I think I like it for the reasons that I think the show is game changing in a way. I don't even call it game changing. I'll just say groundbreaking. In the sense that, and I don't know if you saw me when I tweeted it, but I feel like this is the first time I ever saw Black LA in this. As you know, because whenever you watch a show about LA, they
Yeah.
rarely show Black LA, and when they do, it's usually something negative, like the other
Oh,
side of the tracks theme, right? Like in
and
Entourage,
and,
when mhm.
and a lot of it was shot on location too. It wasn't like Moesha where it's shot like on a soundstage.
Exactly, exactly. They were actually at those locations, and 99.9% of the businesses that they mentioned actually existed, and actually exist today, which definitely helps a lot of those Black businesses. So I would also say, in that regard, to showcase so many actual Black-owned businesses and locations, I think that was the first time I'd ever seen that. So I give Issa the credit where I think it's due, because I've and even though I know she's middle class or upper middle class or rich or however you want to classify it, I still think she did a pretty good job just showing us what LA looks like for Black people. Because these are places we actually go to. These weren't like these arbitrary places that you only see white people at sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not one of those people that thinks like, middle class or upper middle class or whatever people shouldn't be, depicting black life, as long as you do so respectfully. I'm more just hate when they're doing disparaging things about poor black people and they're from that background. It especially annoys me. And I've had that problem with Insecure, where I feel like a lot of times
Yeah.
they're kind of making fun of the blue collar or whatever people. But by season 4, I will say season 4 was the first season of the show that I liked, and I thought it was.
Really?
Oh yeah, I didn't really like it too much before. I mean, I thought it was okay, but I wasn't crazy about it. But season 4, I thought was the best season, the one that I came closest to actually liking, because they were actually talking about stuff. Like when her and Lawrence were talking at the end about why they're like every season, I feel like they're just talking about Twitter topics, and they're trying to have the Twitter topic of the day, and then nothing gets followed up on. Like there's the um lawyer from the hood who starts at her office, and then she's kind of embarrassing her. That lawyer has a bad day. Remember that girl? And then
Uh, yes, her. It
you
was
could.
like her assistant or something.
Oh no, it was the first year, but she wasn't an assistant.
Oh,
She was an associate.
she was
Uh,
working. Was she
she
was
jo-
she working at the black?
she joined, no, not the
Yeah.
black firm, at the white firm that Molly started with. Now I'm just giving an example of why I didn't like about the show.
Oh, that's right. Because she kind of, but I thought that was showcasing how much of a snob Molly was. You don't think it was?
Oh no, I mean I think it was, but it's like they would just set up things and it would go nowhere. Like
Oh,
it
yeah,
was just
that's
there to
true.
start a Sunday night a Twitter war between the genders, and then they wouldn't really follow up on stuff a lot. And
Mhm.
I also didn't like how Issa was like a non-entity. Like for 4 years, we never saw her parents. We saw her brother a few times. You know,
Yeah,
we only found out she was like Nigerian, the character, like halfway through season 4, and I
yeah.
just felt like it wasn't a show that really had a lot to say, or that it was making up a real backstory for the characters. It just wanted to just be like a millennial girlfriends that had a lot of Twitter conversations. In the 4th season, I was ready for them to be like have spicy chicken sandwich jokes. I was ready for more source from Twitter stuff. And I think the 4th season to me was the one that had the least
I
source from Twitter. Like we actually want to write a show about people. And that's why I like the 4th season.
yeah, I like all the seasons. So,
That's
um,
fair.
and I thought your critiques of it were always pretty valid when we did the episode about Insecure,
Yeah.
and you pointed out like, look at how the characters that are supposed to be hood are caricatures of people from the hood, and I thought that was interesting. I didn't really, I mean, I recognize it, but it's one of those things where in a comedy you kind of just assume that that's the joke, right? But I
Yeah.
never occurred to me that all the hood characters were basically caricatures.
Yeah,
So
there's no balance, I think is the problem for me.
right. But it never clicked in my head. And then later, I'm finding out more and more about these characters, mostly from Twitter, because I haven't watched the 5th season yet.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, that's right. They did all go to Stanford. Or, like it just never really clicked in my head. And I was like, actually, yeah, now that you think about it, this isn't like the typical Black LA story.
Yeah.
And I would say she's definitely the typical Black Ladera Heights story. So if you saw The Wood, it's very similar, right?
Yeah.
And they were purposely showing you that. What's the other one? Love and Basketball is another LA story. But they were all in this Windsor Hills, Baldwin Hills, Ladera Heights. Um, and mind you, these are all pretty much in the same area. And these are like the wealthiest Black communities in the fucking country, which still isn't that much because I think they average like 400,000 a year. So it's nothing
Yeah.
compared to like the richest white neighborhoods,
Of
clearly.
course.
But I thought that it was I thought that it was definitely accurate in how I think people from those neighborhoods see the rest of us. And the reason why I say that is because I went to the school that the Wood was centered on. I think I told you guys that before.
Yeah.
And I remember my experience there. There were some poor kids there because there were the kids who were from the apartments, right? Or from the bottoms. They might go there too. But most of the kids that I interacted with were middle class. So, like one of my best friends, her stepdad was a cop and her mom was what did her mom do? She was like an executive for something, right? Um so at any rate, I just felt like that show kind of gave us the perspective of that neighborhood. And I don't think I don't think they veered too much out of that, but the thing about Black LA, the class differentiation is not like a lot of other places,
Mm.
because those neighborhoods I just told you are literally not far from Crenshaw, right? They're right off of Crenshaw, literally. So it's still, you're still dealing with the same circumstances of the other Black people. If you're Black in LA, more than likely you live south of the 10 freeway, which is South LA, right? So even though you're in the richest Black communities, they don't let your Black ass leave there, you know. So that's, so I just think our the way that we interact is very different. I saw somebody say something about Lincoln Heights. Oh, 82 Atlantic. I don't know if you're from LA, but if you are, I would love for you to
There
let
was a
us.
show called Lincoln. There was a show called
Yeah,
Lincoln Heights on Freeform.
yeah, that's what 82 Atlantic is talking about. And
Oh, okay.
the I'm gonna put it up real quick. Lincoln Heights, a show that aired on ABC Family Freeform in the mid 2000s, showcased Black LA. I barely watched, like I watched a little bit of it, and I don't think it really did. For one thing, Lincoln Heights, I didn't even know where the hell that was. I had no clue where the hell that was. That's not even anywhere near a Black neighborhood. I think it might have. I never seen the show completely. Like, I've seen like parts of it and not very much. So I can't really speak on the show overall. But the fact that it was called Lincoln Heights was enough for me to be like, oh, that's about some neighborhood I don't even know about and don't really care about. So it's a little bit different. I don't know if you're from LA, so you could tell me what exactly they showcased in Black LA for that show, and I'd love for you to tell us, 82 Atlantic, in the chat. Because I'm actually curious. Because I didn't really watch the show much. I think I watched like bits and pieces.
Yeah, I saw the first episode, and for whatever reason, I do not remember a single thing except for I think the father was a cop. That's the only thing I remember about
And I
the
think
show.
that's kind of what I remember. And I remember it was like, wasn't like a Black girl. I really don't. It was so long ago. I really don't fucking remember. Damn, I was like mid 2000s. I saw
Yeah,
that
yeah, it was still like when everybody had low-rise pants and midriff showing. Like I feel like I remember midriff on the show.
mid. What? What'd you say?
Oh, midriff is like when your middle showing, like your belly button. Remember in the 2000s,
Oh,
everything was
midriff, the
just
shirt.
yeah, midriff. Yeah, I might have pronounced it
Oh,
wrong,
okay.
but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, you
I
said
big.
midriff.
Oh no, no T at the end, just midriff, like or midriff, whatever,
It's
how
midriff.
wherever the accent goes. But basically, yeah, a lot of belly showing. I remember in the
Kamaria, I think I fuck your name up a lot. Sorry. She said Black people on the west side look down on the east side, and yeah, it's true. In fact, we have a term. Well, when I grew up, I don't know people still use it. I haven't heard the young people say that because I think things are a little bit different now. But when I was coming up, we would actually refer to people on the east side as Eastie, which meant ratchet,
ooh,
essentially. So it was like, "Oh, you Eastie." The thing about South Central, there's the east side and the west side. The west side is the further west you go, the further out of South Central you go. So if you go Crenshaw to La Brea, that's where I was telling you those Black middle class neighborhoods are. It's kind of in this hilly area that's kind of, it's not, how do I explain it? Like there's a road you have to take to get up to those little areas. Um, that's the wealthier people. But then you still have the hood on the west side, which is funny to me because we were from the west side living in Section 8 housing, talking shit about people on the east side. And at that time, I lived off of like 105th and Normandy. If you guys know LA, you kind of have an idea of like Century and Normandy. That's definitely the hood. But people don't really understand the hood of LA because it's so, I think it's different than a lot of places because the Black middle class is not separated from the hood at all.
excuse me. Somebody asked in the chat, excuse me, but I don't know if you've seen Harlem. They want to know how you compare Insecure to Harlem.
I haven't seen Harlem. I'm not gonna watch Harlem. I
Yeah,
don't like I don't
same
like
here.
shows about cities or places that the people who made it aren't from. It just irritates me.
Yeah, and also like I mean, people think I have an infinite capacity to hate watch, but I mean, even I have my limits, and that just looked like nothing good was gonna come out of it. I was just gonna go to bed in a bad mood and just feel bad, like I didn't want to bother. Oh, someone asked how accurate is Snowfall's representation of LA, but I feel like that's a hard one because it takes place
In
30
the
years in the
80s.
past. Yeah,
But I will say I haven't watched it yet. Everybody's telling me to watch it. Everybody says I'll love it. So I haven't watched it. It was John Singleton's show, right?
yeah. Ken
Um,
Ken is watching it now and he loves it, so maybe you guys can do a
yeah,
show on it.
I trust John Singleton. So
Yeah.
if it's his vision, even rest in peace, I trust that. But I do remember being told by my brother he didn't like certain things. He said there were certain things, I guess in the what was the later seasons or what, but he was saying that um he saw that there were characters dressed in ways nobody dressed like in LA. And
Mm.
for the 80s even. So I thought that was interesting. I haven't watched it to know for sure, but he said somebody was wearing a Kangol hat. That's not really like a LA thing.
Yeah,
But
but you know what? In general, man, I feel like with old black stuff, they always do that. They always mix the 70s and the 80s, and they never like. I'm just kind of used to that, unfortunately.
yeah, they a lot of shows do that. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. To me, the best shows are the ones that know how to stay in the time. Like one of my favorite shows ever is Mad Men. Partly for
Yeah,
that reason. Because I thought they did a really good job of consistently trying to show you what the 60s were like. They even try to do things like they'll show you what the models in the 60s looked like at the time. You know, this character that is typically seen as a fat girl in most new TV shows after the 60s, especially. She's like the baddest one in the office. And, you know, she looks like she's thick. She got, you know, big. She got a little shape, you know, not a little shape, got a complete hourglass. And I think that was interesting too, that they show like, oh no, this is what was attractive. And if you think about like, she's kind of built like Marilyn Monroe. I'll say like that. So I
yeah,
thought that
yeah.
was
Christina Hendricks.
yes, that's her name. I don't remember white people's name. Um, but yeah, so I thought that was interesting. And the way that they consistently showed you like the advertisements that were going out at the time. They talked about the shift in advertising. They talked about how certain and the thing is, if you Google a lot of stuff, I'm a Googler. I like to get high and then Google shit. I actually would go whenever I watch any show that's based in a historical period, I start Googling shit. And that show, I'll also say Narcos is really good for this too. Um, if you Google certain things like advertising in the 1960s and you read up certain articles or whatever, you're like, oh shit, they clearly did their research to put this script together. So I always appreciate that. I just can't stand it. Like I told you guys about Queen's Gambit, I fucking hate it. I couldn't even finish it.
Yeah,
It's shit's horrible. It's consistently doing what was the word you guys taught me or Kenny taught me?
presentism.
Presentism. It's that
Yeah,
presentism shit. So
yeah.
thank you
That's
so much, Pensive.
yeah. Thank you, Pensive, and Happy New Year to everybody. Did not get a chance to say Happy New
Yeah, I
Year.
saw everybody was saying Happy New Year. Thank you guys so much. Happy New Year to y'all. We probably should have started off with that. Or maybe he did, and I just
Oh
jumped
no,
in.
no, no! I didn't. You came on like literally seconds after I started.
Okay.
I was testing out this camera. How does it look? I feel like it's a little overwashed. Like
Hazy.
I look very, yeah. Is hazy the word? Overexposed? I don't know what's going on, but this is the best I
Oh,
could get it.
oh, it's like bright and it looks kind of washed. Like you
Yeah,
look
it looks
like
kind.
hella light. Are you light skinned?
I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I look lighter than usual. That's for sure.
I know, I'm teasing you. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I saw them post like, yeah, you look a bit hazy. You look it looks like a cloud or something.
yeah. What? You know what part of the problem is too? I have really strong lights, and I make strong bright lights because it helps with the stream. But I think the strong lights were good on a crappy built-in camera. But I think this camera is too sensitive. So I think this insane
Yeah,
light bulb I have. So that's why I'm not messing with the settings too much because I got a feeling it's more really the light bulb because this is the best I could get it. And I just think, um, like on TV shows when somebody's old and they want to look young, they use these really harsh lights
yeah.
to wash them out. And because this camera is so sensitive, my lights have kind of become that. To me, I looked at Sex in the City women. It's how they shoot the Sex in the City women now.
That's true. I looked at some of the clips. It looks like a horrible show. I'm sorry. I don't like when people bring back
Yeah.
shit that could have just stayed in the past. But yeah, when I got this camera, I had to change my lighting as well because the built-in camera I had on my other laptop was
Yeah.
I don't think it was nearly as clear. Um, Watching my favorite light-skinned cultural critic lawyer is a great way to start the new year.
I'm laughing at Rock the Mike Gunnery looking like the high school pics from the night. Yeah,
Oh shit! You gotta do your pose.
Oh no, it's like that. Is that deep
That is
with the hat on? Yo,
no, why do
the
I got the glossy pick with the hearts?
oh
I
yeah,
got I got one, yeah. Everybody had them in the 90s. Come on, you had to get the glossy picks at the
man.
mall and shit.
Yeah, I promise y'all I'll sort out this camera situation later. But yeah, it's yeah, I look super like pale and washed out. And someone said it looks like I'm coming from up above, like an angel, like I'm a ghost.
Yo, it does. Like you look like a celestial being who's come
Yeah.
to grace us with
You know
his
what? Let me
presence.
see. Let me see if I can mess with this in real time. Let me see. Cuz I think I can. Let's see. Okay, is that better?
No, you're
This is
darker.
worse. Yeah. All right. So, you know what? I'm back in
Yeah,
heaven.
that looks just leave it that way.
Yeah, yeah. So, I'm in heaven right now. There
T
we
is
go.
one of Morgan Freeman's angels in Bruce Almighty.
I mean, Angels in the Outfield. One of them type of movies.
Oh,
Uh,
Ice Out Info, you gotta do a pose squatting with the hand on the chin. You gotta squat though in your picture.
yeah, yeah. There's no room to squat, but yeah, it's either the squat, and then the girls used to do the one hand on the thigh, at the butt. Yeah, yeah, that one.
What was that about? Why do we
I
all
don't,
do that? I
I
don't
don't
even know
know,
where
but
that pose
everybody.
came from.
Yo, you know what I remember too, man, but you never see it anymore. Maybe at least not in New York, because New York doesn't really have black clubs like that, like it used to. But
Mhm.
the background in the club of a bad graffiti mural, like on a blanket or something,
I've
and
seen those.
did they still have those? Uh,
I haven't seen them at a club in a long time. Well, I have never seen them in LA club to be honest with you. But the one time
yeah.
I saw it, I was in New York, and I was surprised they were doing it. To be honest with you, I was like, "Ain't this some like?" I thought it was country shit. So I only see
Oh
people in the
yeah,
South
it's really country. But but
do that
we had
shit.
some clubs in New York that were kind of country. Like
Oh,
there was one called Shadow, and Shadow was like the grown and sexy at country ass
got
club.
you. Yo, why we got a club called GS?
What's
It's
that?
called GS.
Oh,
We
it's
have a
called
grown and
GS.
sexy. It's called GS. Game Sports Lounge / Grown and Sexy.
Oh, clever, clever, clever.
I
Mm,
know.
mm,
It's pretty wild though. I
Uh,
had to stop
the
one of those spots.
the reason to give context, the reason people were getting mad at me about Insecure was I was saying, um, that the show, because there were all these articles, and the articles were saying crazy things like it was the first show to show the mundanity of black life, or it was the first show to just show black people existing. And I was like, okay, this is a stupid. Like, why can't y'all just like the show and say I like it? Like, why do you have to create? And I agree with the reason why you said it's groundbreaking. And one thing that I would say is groundbreaking, right, is I would say two things. It's the first, I think, show that brought like that millennial blue check culture, um, to the screen. You know
This
what
is
I
a
mean?
backhanded ass compliment
I mean, it's backhanded, but if you like
as
that
fuck.
stuff, but it is groundbreaking. It was the first one I think to really capture like people who are on Twitter more than anywhere else of a certain age range and a type. Like it felt, but also I'd say another way is groundbreaking is I think this is the first show, and I think this is what people really like about it, but they don't want to say it because it's self-censored. It is the first show where one of these kind of YouTubers slash influencers broke into like the upper B list or A list of Hollywood. Like it's the first
Oh,
time I think one of them, and it really inspires people because they're like, "Yo, my janky YouTube thing, I have a shot," or my tweets, I might end up writing for something like Insecure, and she would hire people off the internet. Like this woman that used to do like recaps of her show just got retained by Issa Rae's management company, and I,
mm.
like, so I think people are more inspired if they're being honest by her career trajectory than about the content because people don't really talk too much about the stories. Like it had great themes of this and that or whatever.
That's
It's just
how I felt.
yeah,
The other thing that bothered me though is they kept trying to argue with you, but nobody could explain to you what exactly was so groundbreaking. And they
yeah,
would say things, or no, they said it was game two words, game changing and groundbreaking with the two words. And when I kept asking, well, what exactly happened that you said was groundbreaking or game changing? And it kept game changing was a big word. I kept
Yeah,
saying,
that was a
why?
big one.
What? How did it change the game? You can't just say game changing. You have to say how it changed the game. What did she do that changed the game, and what is it that you feel Black people benefited from by her changing the game?
The one thing I think could be said that made it game changing, but none of them said this. They would say loftier things instead. They said it made it so that people um doing digital content and influencing and web shows uh now had a blueprint for breaking into and even then I'm not 100% sure, because at the end of the day she is comfortably middle class and from Stanford. So how much of it is because of how much of it is just because of hustle? Because she makes everything look like hustle. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But how much of it is that, and how much of it is just the same old credentialism? Like,
Mm-hmm.
people who go to Ivy Leagues get shots that other people don't know. This one just happened to have a web show, and now you think it's because of her web show and hustle, but maybe that would have happened no matter what she was doing, as long as she had that Stanford pedigree. It could be a lot of things, but I think what's groundbreaking about it to people was really, hey, it's shown me a path from social media to Hollywood that has inspired me. But they don't want to say that. Instead, they say it showed dark skinned people existing. It showed you
Dark
know
skinned Black women leading a show.
having friends. Someone said that black women can have friends, and I was like, what are you even talking about? Like, I've seen so many shows with black
It was the first
women friends.
awkward Black woman on television, and I think you ended up listing like 10 of them.
Yeah, yeah. Everything that they were trying to tell me, I would pull up evidence to the contrary, and then they would move the goalpost. So someone said, it's the first show where black people didn't have to be perfect and strong, and they could just exist and and I was like, okay, here's a bunch of shows. Here's Rock. He was a garbage man. Here's like Good Times. Here's this show. Here's a show. The Parenthood. I brought up all these shows where UPN and CW, where the black people were just working regular jobs, in
You mean
a
like most of them? Half and
y-
half?
yeah,
Um like you know what's interesting also? They kept trying to use identity as the factor. And
yeah,
that was one of the things that kept pissing me off. It was like, well, how many? Because they kept getting really specific, which you can literally do for anyone. You can say
yeah,
anyone changed the game or was groundbreaking specifically just because of how they look or what they say. Oh, just she's a dark skinned Black woman who did this and did that. And they started listing all these attributes, and I was like, yeah, but you can say that about anybody. Because I can list off attributes of Jerry Seinfeld. That doesn't change the fact that white men have been doing having their own TV shows forever. How many of them are? How many stand-up comedians are Jewish with brown hair, blue eyes?
yeah, yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? And
It
from
was the
New
first
York,
show that had a five
and
foot seven exactly, uh, dark skinned black girl with one peg leg. Like, just try to get as specific
right,
as they can to make it
exactly.
groundbreaking.
It was the first time we had a show about nothing. So it was just like you can literally do that with any television show that's ever been on television,
Yeah, if you
unless
just
you
get specific enough, exactly.
right, because every everything has to still be different than the previous, otherwise you have all kinds of lawsuits. So clearly it's going to be different than
Yeah,
anything else that's on television.
and like, this is how they're moving the goalposts. They said there was no show with just regular mundane black people. So I brought up a bunch of shows, and he said, well, that was none of those examples are from the last 15 years. So it was groundbreaking for the last 15 years. I'm like, that's not how
That's not
groundbreaking
what
works.
groundbreaking is.
Yeah, and on top of that, the older it is, that actually hurts your argument. Like if you want to say
Exactly.
something groundbreaking, if I say it happened in the 40s first and not 5 weeks ago, the older it gets, the more it hurts your argument. So saying that, oh, that's too old count makes zero sense. It's like,
None.
actually, the older it is, the more it hurts your case. But I said, I'm on Twitter. I have 280 characters. I don't have forever to write. So I went with the most well-known stuff. But I'm like, okay, what time frame do you want? So I gave him a bunch of shows that were on the air when Insecure came out, and there was one called like Let's Stay Together, and that was on BET. I used to watch a lot of these
Yeah.
BET sitcoms, and one of the guys that was a UPS delivery guy. He was like what the main character. There was um something else. Those Kadeem, not Kadeem Hardison, Malcolm Jamal Warner and Tracy Ellis Ross had a show for a couple of years, and I mentioned that one. I mentioned some other ones that came out around the same time or a couple years before. I don't have it in front of me, but then the person said, "Yeah, but how many of them were popping like Insecure? I ain't heard of none of these shows." I'm like, okay, so you're moving the goalposts. First, it was groundbreaking. I give you an example of shows that did it first. Then he said, no, it has to be new and groundbreaking, which makes no sense. Like it didn't have to be the first, it has to be new after a certain break. So I said, okay, here's a bunch of shows to show that there was no break, and there was always shows with. Oh, I remember the other ones I brought up too. Half and half, because they were saying there was no shows with goofy black girls, and I was like,
Right. That was the
half and
one you
half with Rachel True. Rachel True's character was a giant goofball.
right.
If
She
if
was
you remember,
awkward. In
yeah,
fact, I would say she was more awkward than Issa Rae's character.
yeah, I
Because she
totally say,
actually, throughout the entire series, all kinds of weird, awkward shit was there. On top, and I would makes it even better is you had a story of how these characters became the way that they were. If
yeah,
you remember, she's the child, she's the first daughter of this man
yeah,
who gets remarried to a rich woman who, and they become rich together and they raise their daughter in this rich household. Meanwhile, she has this working class mom. Well, I call it working class. Mom's a psychologist. She's not really working class, but
okay,
she's this
yeah,
mom who's a single mom, really, who shelters her and tries to do certain things. And, all these things that show you how Dee Dee became the way she was and how Mona became the way she was. There is no real story about how Issa got to be this awkward person. And I don't think she was
yeah.
that awkward. She seemed like every other rich black girl in
It,
LA.
if anything, it seemed kind of forced that they were trying to make, like,
Well, I think
but
initially they did it,
mm,
but the thing is, it's like how Eminem, he kept getting richer and richer, so his content couldn't stay the same. His
yeah,
character couldn't stay the same. Like you can't keep whining about the trailer park and your mom being on drugs and all the other crazy shit when your whole life circumstances are different. So I
yeah,
think with Issa Rae's character, remember when the first season, she looked totally different. They had her lose weight. They had her do her hair a certain way. All of her makeup, she became a TV person. So I've seen
yeah.
her in person, huh?
Not gonna say it's almost jarring to go back to the first season and everything. It's She's so radically different, and it never worked into the plot, which is also kind of weird because if you were Lawrence and you broke up with your girl and then she came back like 3 points hotter, like that would have been a great content for the story. Like people would
If
be
they
like,
put it as a part of the story.
yeah, and his friends start teasing him like, "Damn, she left you, and then she lost all that weight." I saw Issa; she was looking good. She was, I didn't even know that was her. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
her
weird.
skin was looking good. Like you could tell when people start. It's like when people start getting money, and everything to start to look different. It's just the reality of it. Especially in the industry because you start having these higher expectations of you. I guarantee you, Hollywood made her lose weight. I promise. She wasn't a big girl. She was always not big. She was pretty medium, small girl. They
Yeah,
made her lose weight. She looks great. I'm not knocking that. But it's very clear to me that she became an industry person. You know what I mean? When you're just on a web series, you're not really an industry person. But now she's with Shonda Rhimes and Larry Wilmore and HBO and all this shit. And again, not a knock to her. And I also want to take it
yeah, mhm,
not just insecure, because you actually were talking about it from a broader perspective about media kissing ass overall. Because you
yeah.
were also talking about before that the Harlem article saying that Harlem was
Uh, uh,
whatever,
the first black Sex in the City, and what's funny is, I
which
mean,
is a
there was
complete disrespect to girlfriends because girlfriends was that and better. But
yeah, and if someone tried to use that argument, someone used against me because for some reason people kept changing groundbreaking whenever he gave an example. Like his example for 10 years ago. Well, no, I meant within groundbreaking in the last 6 years or whatever. But in the case of Harlem, there was a show about four black women in New York. I think they lived in Harlem. That came out like a couple of months before. It's called Runs the World
Oh
on
wow.
Stars. So it's like, even if you go, they're not just erasing like 15 years ago. They're erasing like last month. Like yeah, yeah, like
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm
it's
sorry.
crazy. They will do anything to make themselves always seem like the breaking new ground people in anything they do.
Yo, the funny though. So this is another one. If I could, wonder if I could find that tweet. He might have blocked me by now. I don't know. This guy. So we didn't talk about Southside. We could talk about Southside too.
Oh
And that
yeah.
writer who. So this is writer for Southside. I guess he's writing for Southside, right? For
No,
television.
no, no. He doesn't write for Southside.
What does he write for?
Later in the thread, he said that he just really admires what they do. But he had a lot of
Okay.
credits. He had a lot of credits. I
Well,
think it was
he
Moneybag Ho was his name.
yeah, he did like 13 Reasons Why or something like that. I think
Okay.
that was on his bio. He tweets something out. This is a black guy. I figured out from the comments he was gay. He talked about straight black men. I don't know if you do know that. Oh, actually, did I put that in the group, in our Twitter group?
Um. Yeah, yeah. I should be able to find it. I think I can
Yeah,
find it
if you
because
could pull that up. So he
yeah.
posts this video with black men in suits. It's like some old video I've seen on Twitter before. And when I've seen it before, it was definitely a goofy looking video to me. But the context in which he was using it was to shit on straight black men. And so his whole thing was, oh, black men, because black men were saying based on Twitter, like, oh, where's our Insecure? I would like a show for black men that's similar to Insecure. Which I thought was a pretty valid thing to say. I don't know too many shows that are centered on black male friendships, right now at least. So
Yeah.
this guy, in response to that, tweets this video of these black men in suits just randomly walking with suits, and he's just like, "This is what straight black men want." When they say they want a black male, they want a black Insecure, whatever he said, and then he
It's
said,
just like no flaws, no whatever. And the thing
"Yeah,
that's
no."
funny about that is that there
Just
actually
so he said,
was a
just
show that
suits and vibes. That's what he said. No flaws, no character, no this, no that. Just suits and vibes. Basically, black men just want a show where black men look good all day. They don't really want a
and,
story.
and the bullshit about that is their crew are the ones who actually want things that nothing ever shows them looking bad. Like they're the ones who cannot take any self-criticism in art. Like they think anything that makes, their tribe look bad is um violence. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
yeah, so that part kind of bugged me right there. Like the idea of like black blue checks acting like um they're so open to self critique in
So
their
this is
art.
the thing.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Your girl, Kimberly Crenshaw. I keep want to call her Kershaw because I just
my
don't like the fact that
my
her name is.
girl. Yep, that's her.
Yeah, that's your girl. Your girl,
That's my
Kimberly
people.
Crenshaw. For those guys who don't know her, she's like the pseudo black feminist. I call her pseudo because I don't think she really believes half the shit she say.
Yeah.
I think she's one of those opportunist entrepreneur people who just understands branding. That's just my belief about her.
Oh,
Anyway,
I agree with you.
so she tweets some shit about this show. It's snarky though. It was like real snarky, like, oh, black men say they want a show, but this show already exists. And it's some brand new show that literally just came out like a few days ago. And it's called Grand View, I think. So she
Oh, Grand
posted
Crew. That thing just
Grand
came
Crew.
out.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
it
yeah, Grand
literally
Crew.
just
It
came
it
out.
just it just came out. It just
So
came
this is
out. Like
my
you got some
right.
nerve.
So she was just being a bitch, really. So she says that shit and she tweets a thing out. And then I was looking at the quote tweets to see how people were responding. And one girl retweeted it and she was like, somebody at that girl that said Issa Rae doesn't give people opportunities. I guess that guy used to work for Issa Rae. I wrote for Insecure, started Insecure or
Oh,
something.
did
The
he
guy
work
who
for
created that
Insecure?
show. The
Oh,
guy who
makes
created that
sense.
show. And so that there was like, but the funny part about that person saying that, because Nina was basically saying, I don't see what was game changing about Issa Rae. All she did was get rich. Basically, she just put on all her rich friends. And so when
Yeah,
this
yeah,
girl was like,
exactly.
which is exactly what kind of happened. So this girl was like, at that girl who said Issa Rae doesn't give people opportunities, whatever the fuck that girl, which is not what Nina said. So I was like, wait a minute, let me look up this guy who created the show and see who he is. The guy who created that show is from a place in LA, and I've told you guys about it before, called Redondo Beach. Any place besides Long Beach with the word beach in it in LA is a rich area. And parts of Long Beach is also rich, but Long Beach is whole nother animal. But in general, Redondo Beach, Manhattan Beach, these are all really wealthy areas. You're not living in Redondo Beach and you're not making six figures. It's just not happening. In fact, I looked at the median income. The median income is over $100,000 a year. This is where he's from. He also made a mixtape called the Redondo Tape, which is, I didn't listen to it because I don't want to hear this guy rap. But my point was just like, he's still exactly in the category of people that Nina was pointing out that Issa Rae puts on. But people didn't even think about like what they're saying. They didn't look it up. I looked it up because I was just curious who this guy was. I had never heard of the show. There was no promo. I didn't think there was good enough promo. And instead of there being a critique of the fact that the show Grand Crew didn't get the proper promo,
Yeah.
they're getting snarky with Black men. This is your opportunity to promo. You don't have to get snarky. You don't have to be a bitch about it. You don't have to be condescending. All you had to do was say, "Oh, y'all looking for this? Here you go. Here's this Black guy who to create this show. It's great, And guess where he's from? Insecure. Whatever. He's just being snarky. But him coming from Insecure might encourage people to watch because they said they wanted a show similar to Insecure. But I just felt like people didn't really want to see Black men satisfied.
No, of course not.
Colonel Kobe Gaddafi said, "What that show sucks. That show is written for blue check blavity women who say Black men are trash, but curb all the Jason Johnson guys that wear the permanent capes for them." What's Jason Johnson?
Jason Johnson's that dude from The Root. He's always saying dumb stuff and getting his foot in his mouth. He was the one.
Oh,
He had an article. One of the last articles we laughed at him about was that Loki was a Black Lives Matter show. Was an article that
who's
he did.
Loki?
Loki is like the Marvel TV show that came out a couple months ago, and he wrote an article. I never saw the show, but he wrote an article saying that you had to try to give honorary blackness to everything. So he said that this Marvel show was the Black Lives Matter show that we didn't know we needed. It was
So I'm gonna tell you exactly what that is. So people who don't know, you probably know T, but a lot of people
Mhm.
probably don't know this. When you see articles like that, the publication was paid to write that article. They don't have to, they may or may not disclose it to you because it might be some underhanded, under the table type deal. But when they write stories like that, because you're like, what the fuck is this? It's really just a promo article, but they have to make it fit the Black branding of the publication. So that's what that is. So when you see stuff like that, it's merely just promo.
Normally I would agree with you, but with these people, I think a lot of times the same way Kanye says like they do stuff that people didn't even ask them to do when they coon. When it comes to shilling, they're the same way. A lot of times they will just shill like a tryout, like to get your attention.
Mhm.
Like, you know
But
what I mean? Like, so I think a lot because I
you're
remember
right.
there was a
But that's who
time,
they hire.
yeah, yeah.
You
It's
get what
like,
I'm saying?
hmm
They know who they're hiring because that's what they want. They want people who are going to do that exact thing. The fake woke shit, that's what they want. So you're right, they do, but they hire people who do that. They look and see who writes like that online, then they
yeah,
hire
yeah,
those people.
yeah. So they will hire those people. You're absolutely right. Which is the reason why they write like that.
Exactly.
I mean, the same way Issa Rae's management company signed that girl who wrote all these great recaps for Insecure. Like they look for like one of the reasons why people like kiss ass a lot now is because it can actually lead to a job. Damon Lindelof, the
It
guy who did
does.
Watchmen, he's hired several of his recappers as actual writers. And in another world, that would be something to throw up your hands over. Like, hey, that's nepotism, that's cronyism, that's
Right.
unprofessional. But everybody now is so
That's
desperate for the same type of deal that there's no one left to like everyone in media now wants to write screenplays and wants to get a Marvel movie or a TV show. So there's no one whose job it is just to be a critic who's going to care about the art of criticism, because to
hmm
them being a critic is kind of like what being a bartender's become. Like it used to be back in the day, there were people who were just bartenders and that's all they wanted to do for their whole life, and they became like master bartenders and whatever. But after a certain point, bartenders are just people who are doing a job between auditioning for movies or writing their
Mm-hmm.
book. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like criticism like that. Like everyone in criticism wants to get called up to the majors, so to speak.
Well,
So
usually,
yeah,
yes, that's absolutely true. I think that's a lot. You'll notice a lot with comedians. They like to do those funny critical things, but really they're trying to get on a movie, become a
yeah,
stand up. Well, a lot of times they also do stand up though, if they're on their shit. Not everybody is. Some people just want to get hired off the internet, and that happens to some degree. The problem though, a lot of times those people aren't as talented because to do how do I explain this? Back in the day, you had to actually work your way up into a space. You had to do some shit for a long fucking time before you even got your own show. You know,
yeah,
Martin was doing local stand up, then made it to Def Comedy Jam, then had his own show, right? And that was years. He looks young and he's young, but he started very early. But a
yeah,
lot of people had to work in the industry for years and hone their craft and uh be an apprentice to some degree, be mentor. Like it takes time. You have to be able to go through all those harsh things. Like look at how I feel like a lot of comedians they're skipping the hard part and they're doing videos, but we're not getting good stand up when they get specials, right? Because
yeah,
they didn't spend most of their career touring. Like underground rappers used to, these hole in the wall spots, getting booed and shit. 4 people show up. They didn't have to go through that. They got selected off the internet. So they sat in their house, in a comfortable house, went to their regular ass job, whatever it was, then came home, sat at a computer, did that. And I said, I'm not saying that's not work, but it's nothing like being a person who's actually working off from the ground up in the industry because there was no technology to do none of this shit that we're doing now, right? Now you can make a whole movie on a fucking iPhone, right? You can make an entire movie, edit it
yep,
and everything without leaving the iPhone. And you could not do that in the past. I think it was the guy who made what's that show? What's that movie called? It's the book and the movies. The Spook Who Sat by the Door. What's the author's name?
yeah.
I can't remember his name.
It's Ivan. Oh no, Ivan Dixon is the one that did the movie, the book. Spook was
Like
sat by the
Robert
door.
Greenlee or something
Sam
like that.
Greenlee. I think it's
Sam
Sam Greenlee.
Greenlee. Um
Yeah,
so I was watching an interview with him and he was talking about how expensive it was to make his movie and how hard it was to make. He was like, honestly, these days, and he was speaking, might have been 2007, 8ish, something like that. And he was saying, like, yo, I would have made 10 movies for the money that I made. The money, what it cost me last to make this movie independently, I could have made 10 of those with just my phone out here. The technology is so easy to get. Same thing with
mm,
music production. Everybody make beats
yeah,
now. None of these
hmm,
niggas know how to make music. They know how to make beats that sell on the internet, maybe. But look at that. Look at all of our classic old producers. They were musicians. They have been in the game for a long fucking time. You know what I mean? They have been
yeah,
working for years and years and years before they got a hit on somebody's album. We don't we're not we're in a whole era where everything's kind of microwave, right? So like I'll
yep,
even look at this. Look at we're doing podcasts, we're doing streaming. Before you had to have a broadcasting degree to do this and then get a studio and be able to record. I remember, when I first started doing radio and stuff, a lot of this stuff did not exist. In fact, I learned about a lot of this shit doing champagne charts because I was doing shit the old school way. I didn't even know this shit existed. There was no StreamYard, there was no TriCast or Zencaster. None of that shit existed when I started doing podcasts and radio and media stuff. None of
yeah.
that existed.
And it's a real mixed blessing because there was this kind of idea. I think it's caused to happen. The promise of all this stuff was going to be like the gatekeepers are now gone, and now all you need is just everyone has access. So it's going to become a crowded field, and then the cream is going to rise to the top. But
Hmm.
I think like the opposites happen. I think the democratization of everything and the way that all this stuff works now is if you have a following, if you have a Twitter following, whatever, they don't really care about anything else. You have a Twitter following, they're almost more free now to focus on just handing out stuff to people with the right credentials because it's like um there's just how do I put it? I feel like the democratization of everything and making everything easier and cheaper to do gives them more freedom to let a lot of connected people get in, because now you don't need to deliver a million eyeballs. You can just be on a small streaming network
Mm-hmm.
and get like a couple 100,000 views on HBO Max, and there's no commercials to be like, the shrinking of everything has created it so like there's all these little ways to make money that don't require being good enough to get like I'll give you an example. This will illustrate it better, right? Um when those people kept moving the goalpost on me in Insecure, I think this point will work better with the solid example. Um they said, okay, this is the first time it's ever happened with goofy black girls and mundane whatever. So I brought up a bunch of examples. Said, oh, those are too old. We're talking about new. It was groundbreaking for the last couple of years, and I brought up a bunch of examples for the last couple of years, and they're like, well, those shows were not big. They were all flops, and this was a household name. So then I responded with the ratings to all the shows, and the Insecure this year averaged about 200 and something thousand viewers an episode on the lower end, closer to like 220 or something. But some episodes got as low as like 189,000.
Oh,
That's really, I mean, I've seen tweets get retweeted more than that. Like that's but HBO Max can afford to do that because they don't have to deliver to advertisers. You know, all they care about is the growth of the subscriber base,
right.
and it's hard to say which shows lead to which like for example, if NBC runs a show and they have to pay a certain amount of money to run the show at that time and have to make their money back from the advertisers to cover that exorbitant fee, like
Mm-hmm.
shows like that broadcast over regular broadcasting or the airwaves or regular cable and whatever, they can't afford to have any show that's doing 190,000. Uh,
Right.
they're
You
not
got
gonna
to
make
have
their money.
limits.
Yeah, they're not gonna make their money back from the commercials because your advertisers pay you by the eyeball. You know, if you get a million people tuning in, then the advertiser pays you because accordingly. It's a rolling scale.
Yeah.
So
And remember,
yeah,
network TV is about packaging audiences for
yeah, exactly.
advertisers, right? So, oh, this show gets Black women between these ages who have careers, certain types of careers. Okay, this is a great way to advertise your Black version of this new L'Oreal product, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And if you notice now, things like CBS, they have a special web only version called CBS All Access, and
Mhm.
and they're doing stuff like that because they're trying to duplicate the same small economies of scale that
Yeah.
HBO Max can get away with. Like, so they're
Peacock
studying
is doing too. Peacock is
Peacock.
doing.
I was gonna bring that up next. Peacock is NBC's. Like, they want to be able to get away with have not having shows have to break a million, 2 million, and that's kind of like what I was trying to say is these technologies. Everyone thought that the technology was going to democratize everything, and then there'd be so much competition, and the gatekeepers would be so powerless that the creme de la creme is going to rise up, and they wouldn't have to be from the same four schools or the same pedigree. But instead, what's going to happen is all these things created these avenues, like these Peacocks, these HBO Maxes, these um web things where or these websites where you can actually get away with all this micro niche stuff. And
Hmm.
it's almost better now because look, I can hire like Issa Rae is like from Stanford or whatever and has this background, but if she tried to get on NBC, she would, no matter what her pedigree is, you can't hide the fact that you didn't get like 1.5 million viewers. But
Hmm.
if I give you a space where you don't have to deliver the numbers, we can make up any narrative you want. So you would think Insecure had way more viewers than it did because the media has talked it up, and no one is gonna do like what what we do, which is actually look up the ratings. They just go
Right.
by they just go by the narrative. So now she's got this narrative of being like paradigm shifting um so influential, but in reality, if you're getting like only a couple 100,000, like a lot of people don't watch her show, including in the black community. Her audience is 62% white, but on
That's
top of
right. You
that,
did something.
190 something thousand on the episode, 60% of it is white. Like, but because you're not trying to do what you describe, which is sell proof to L'Oreal. Like L'Oreal would want numbers. Like we're selling this black thing, and you promise the black audience, show us the Nielsen numbers, prove to us this and that, and they're gonna want the data. The data comes from a third party, and it has to be vetted. And it's hard to game. With this thing, you can say, hey, this was what Black America was tuned into every night, and it was game changing. And unless you dig, who's really gonna know? They can get away with any story they want. There's no third party advertiser to account to. It's just fans on Twitter that you have
Right.
to. Yeah. So like,
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
let's say one last thing. So these shows on BET that most people have not heard of because they're not written up by like white critics, right? There was one with Malcolm Jamal Warner and Tracy Ellis Ross, and that was one of the ones the guy was telling me. Oh, but that's a nobody show, nothing. And the ratings for the debut of that show were 3 million, and this show got canceled. That show, Let's Stay Together, was routinely doing 1.6 million, and nobody heard of it, and it got canceled. Because on commercial TV, you just can't get away with that.
Yeah.
So things are
And it's
getting
harder.
canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah, things are getting canceled in the million mark. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to just reiterate with something you had said, which is the online space and the subscription space, which is pretty much what HBO and Showtime are now anyway. You were on point. It's very much about targeting niche groups because that's all you have to do on the internet.
Yeah.
And they promote, and that niche group promotes shit for you to their niche group. So if you think about like Insecure, one of the things that they did was look at Twitter conversations about relationships and write storylines that could continue to be talked about and argued about and debated on Twitter, right? So like the first season, if you remember, how much debate went on about relationships and cheating and how much of a dog Lawrence is or how much of whatever,
Lawrence
right?
Hive. Remember Lawrence Hive?
Yeah, I was in Lawrence Hive.
Yeah.
I didn't call it that. I wasn't a part of it really, but I was one of the people who felt like people were talking shit about Lawrence, and I didn't necessarily think he was the worst guy on planet. I think it was a rough patch, and it was clear it was a rough patch, and she just kind of was, over it, I guess. And shit happens in relationships. I'm not even judging the character, really.
Yeah, I think a problem too is that Lawrence, I think, is just more engaging to watch than Issa Rae. Unfortunately, I mean, Issa Rae got better, but I don't mean just individuals, but Issa Rae's friend group that she wrote for herself in that show are so annoying on top of everything else. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I like that one girl, the one that everybody like, Kelly. That's the
Kelly,
only one
yeah,
I like.
she's the
She's
best
the
one.
only one that has any fucking sense.
Yeah,
She's and as much as she tries, she kind of sounds like she says some outlandish shit. If you notice, she always has her shit together. She usually makes really good points. But at any rate, real quick before you get to that, because I wanted to comment on something that.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I would just want to get it in the background. I actually didn't mean to put it on the screen.
Oh, okay. Gwen Johnson, I appreciate you for saying this. It's something I noticed this too with Sweetie. I feel like I pick on her too much, and I actually don't dislike her. I just think her career is so manufactured to the point of it's not going to be successful.
Yeah,
And it hasn't been successful. She's not a hit artist. She actually fits in line with what you were talking about. She's niche. I think they thought because she was popping on the internet, she was going to be able to blow up musically, but she's not a good music artist,
yeah, and she's skipping steps that like what you described. Like if she was practicing in small venues and working on her craft, a lot of the mistakes that we see her doing would have happened before she even got in prime time. So, but now she's making mistakes on a big stage. Like, have you seen those performances people put up of her in these big places? And she's
yeah,
basically,
horrible.
she can't dance. The coordination's bad.
I saw the Saturday Night Live performance. I saw a few different. I saw one where she was like bent over and like clicked her feet weird. It was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And I saw the Saturday Night Live performance when it was so funny because I thought everything was set up for it to be a great performance. The lighting was great. The musicians in the back were great. The dancers fucking killed it. The dancers were just great, right? So I'm
Yeah.
thinking, and then, honestly, I listened to the song itself, the lyrics. The lyrics actually sounded pretty entertaining, you know. It fit in line with her character. So I didn't. The only thing that was bad. So the song wasn't bad. The dancers were bad. The musicians in the back weren't playing bad. Of course, the lighting was great. The setting, everything was great except her. She even looked great. She always looks great, but
Yeah.
she could not perform. And I think they just, like you said, when you skip those steps, you don't really get developed as a performer. Has she been touring in these hole in the wall spots like people had to
Yep.
do back in the day? You know what I mean? Was she, uh, honing her craft as a performer? The thing about a performer, if you look at any performer, old or young, right? If they've been doing it for a while, you'll notice a good performer can perform in front of anybody, regardless of what the audience looks like. Nothing, anything. I watched Ice Cube perform once at USC, right? It wasn't even like a full concert. It was like in an auditorium. He was being interviewed by Jody Armour, and they were giving him an honorary degree, right? So he said he just like a couple songs. But even with him just standing up there doing a couple songs, the performance was amazing. You're like, how the fuck did he even do it? Just him on a microphone. Because he's a fucking performer. He can do the shit in his fucking sleep. You know, that
Yeah.
energy, it's not as simple as, if you watch somebody who's bad up on stage, then watch somebody who's good. There's a vast difference. And they could be
And
doing the same thing technically.
And I remember she couldn't even keep her breath. Like she was running out of
Oh, she
breath
had
while she
no
was
breath
trying.
control.
Yeah, yeah, she had no breath control. And so I don't know if the lyrics and her rapping were bad normally, or if it was more that because she was out of breath, she couldn't make the rhymes go right. Because I never heard the studio version of the thing, but yeah, she was because she was trying to
Yeah, I
dance
didn't listen to
and
the
rap.
studio version. I just tried to understand what she was saying. And when I
Yeah,
really listened to the lyrics, I was like, actually, these are pretty cool lyrics. I'm sure she
yeah,
didn't
they
write
weren't
them.
horrible lyrics, but she couldn't
But
deliver it.
I mean, and then the thing, everything, even the choreography was set up for her to be good. She just couldn't execute. Because even there was like the part which it says something about something something. I'm starting to think you can't handle me. But the line before that was like kind of cute. Like, oh shit, I get it. Now, granted, I don't subscribe to the ideology of it. That's
Yeah.
not me, but it's a good song, you know. But yeah, it's one of those things where I can see how these artists missing steps are fucking up the game. But
But it's also messing up her game because it's hard to get off first impressions. Like for example, Big Sean. I had no idea until you guys told me that he raps way better now. He's
oh yeah,
frozen to me off those first two albums when he was just
the
doing really
corny
bad
punchline
punchlines.
shit.
Yeah, the corny punchliney stuff. But he's somebody that was kind of rushed into the spotlight really fast. Like Kanye discovered him at the airport. Next thing you know, he's putting him in songs, and he always had a good flow, but his lyrics were just like kind of garbage. And
His songs
so
were super. You know what is for me, Big Sean? He don't make nothing meaningful, so
yeah, he
he
doesn't make
just
anything
kind of makes
meaningful.
songs.
Yeah, but you can get away with that if your charisma and skills
Oh
are
yeah,
so because someone like LL Cool J, his first couple of albums, he never rapped about anything but how pretty he was, but his wordplay was so good. People would it took a couple of albums before people got sick of it. But
yeah.
Big Sean, his lyrics were just terrible. And I tried two of his albums. I said, this guy's got a good voice, a good flow, but I can't hear these. He was making lyrics about Family Guy and just dumb stuff.
Just
So
yeah, because everything he had to make everything a punchline, and it was which is
yeah,
to me that shit gets old. If you can't
y-
really rap that punchline, it should get old like super
yeah,
quick.
yeah. Even good punchlines get old. Because I remember I even got tired of Cannabis for too much punchlines. And his punchlines were good. If your
Yeah,
punchlines are like 50-50, which is like what Big Sean's were, yes, but I didn't know like the last two or three albums, like he's been rapping way, way better. And then until you guys told me and I listened, I was like, oh shit. But he was getting clowned on Twitter like last year, and everyone was using examples for those first two albums. And it almost hurts you to be fast tracked and to learn your way on such a big platform because that means your bad first impression will be that much bigger. And so I think
right.
Sweetie's going through that problem because now she's becoming a joke
The
this
difference
early in the
though
game.
is Big Sean had the backing to make hits.
Yeah,
So Weedy doesn't make hits.
Mm.
I think black people think about black people. That's so funny, and I'm similar. I'm the same way. We think because something's a hit in between us, we think something's a hit. I think it's even worse on Twitter. We think something's popular on Black Twitter, it must be popular everywhere, and it's not. Um, a lot of that shit don't translate because the thing is, this reality is this: you don't make a hit unless white folk like your shit. White folk
Yeah.
don't know who the hell Sweetie is. They don't know who the hell she is. Um,
A quick thing.
outside of the
Oh, so,
internet.
go ahead. No, go say.
What were you gonna say?
People always say this. I never say when people say this. I feel like you do worse in the 80s and 90s. Like for example, someone like Drake, I think in the 80s and in the late 80s to the 90s, would be just an average rapper. I think he's like in the GOAT conversation because things are worse now. Like to me, Big Sean's like corny punchline and stuff, I think would do actually worse
I don't think
in the
people really
90s to
remember.
me.
I agree. Actually, I don't think people really remember what it was like in the 80s and 90s as far as hip hop. If you listen to a lot of old hip hop, they didn't really play when it came to inauthenticity. Like they pretty much would throw you off the fucking stage. You had diss records from about you from here to Kingdom Come, like, and they didn't stop. I don't think people really remember that. So they think that because I think they think because now I will say this: I think delivery has gotten a way better since the beginning of hip hop, right?
Yeah.
And I think the cleverness in certain things definitely got a little bit better. But I think we forget that the content is still kind of corny and some of that shit wouldn't have flown, right? Or even if it did, it might have been a hit amongst these people and everybody else would have laughed at you, right? You wouldn't have been
Yeah.
able to continue your career because no other rappers would want to be associated with you, right? Or they don't want to do a tour with you. You're a joke. Why would I do a tour with you? The other thing is, I think people say that, and I think you're hitting the nail on the head because of where we're at now. I think Drake is considered, a goat. I don't think he's a goat at all, personally.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's not talented. But it's hard for me to call you a goat when you sing a lot and you make a lot of songs that are real whiny. He's just not my thing.
and
But I think,
and you don't rhyme all your raps, and
right,
combine it with the fact that like only 1/3 of your songs are rap to begin with, so it's not like you're doing that much rap that you need somebody.
right. I mean, maybe if he got signed by Puff, he could have got, but then I couldn't even say that because only the ones who made big hits weren't like Big Sean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so I really don't know where he would have fit in the 80s and 90s. And I would say Puff Daddy probably had a lot to do with that change
I think
of
so.
hip hop becoming so pop. Because it wasn't pop before. People also forget that too. A lot of rap songs did not cross over to the pop charts. They did not make the Hot 100 or whatever the Billboard thing is, right? They would be on the R&B and rap charts, and rap charts didn't always exist. They would put them on R&B charts. In fact, I was looking up something not too long ago, and I forgot what I was looking up, but I saw that uh, this artist it was an R&B hit and a hip hop hit. Their album was a hit in hip hop and R&B.
Mm.
Did not hit in the pop charts, but they were like top 5 in
Was it
R&B and
was it
hip hop.
Heavy D? Because I feel like Heavy D
No, it
had kind
was,
of
who did I look up?
was it Mary J?
No, 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 no. It was damn, who was it? I have to think about it because I don't remember. Now I just remember looking like, damn, I might have been, it might have, whoever it was, I might have said it on the podcast. I think I was looking it up while I was on the podcast. So if you listen to the podcast that we did last, I don't know when it's gonna come out, but listen to the podcast with me, Mario, and Kenny. The title is called Young, Mediocre, and Black. So if you forget that one, I think that's
Oh,
where I
that's a
mentioned.
good name. Instead of
Yeah,
Young Gifted.
that was my idea. Um,
That's
but
funny.
I wanted you to get to your video clip
Oh
because that's
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's put the video clip up,
Yeah, because I
and
wanted to
after
talk
this
about
video
that
clip,
too.
I'll explain what creative cargo cults means. Also, I think I've been losing weight, but I don't think I've lost this much weight. I think this camera is actually slimming me. Like,
No, you lost weight. I'm
yeah.
jealous because I gained all that shit back. I lost like
Oh, did you?
15 pounds and gained all that shit right back.
Yeah, no, I did lose weight, but I do think this camera on top of that. So it's called a Logitech Brio. If anybody just wants to look like an extra 10 pounds lighter,
Yeah, let me put that
just
on my Amazon wish list. I would
yeah,
love to
this
look
thing.
smaller.
Yeah, this thing has slimmed my
Although I think you
face.
guys like me big, right? I'm just
I think like
Um,
anybody can get you. Okay,
but I have a
here.
question.
Mhm.
I want
Good.
to ask everyone after we watch this clip too.
Sure, sure. And actually,
Or
before the
discuss it.
clip, let me just do this real quick because I forgot to do it at the top. We're gonna play this clip, but also remember hit the super chat if you're enjoying the stream. That's just a dollar sign at the bottom of the chat if you're on YouTube, and support us that way. Like, comment, share, subscribe. That costs nothing. Um, on PayPal, you can hit us up at champagnesharks@gmail.com, or you can hit us up at Venmo or Cash App, Champagne Sharks. And the last thing I'll say is become a subscriber of the podcast at patreon.com/champagne sharks. That's where you get all the bonus content and the extra episodes. And something else you can do too, something we're trying to find now for people who don't subscribe to the podcast, um, email us at champagnesharks@gmail in uh in an email and let us know what type of perks or what type of things we could offer that would make you pull the trigger as far as becoming a subscriber. We would definitely appreciate that feedback. And all the information about how to support us is scrolling on the bottom. So, if you missed it, don't worry. It's going to scroll by in the bottom. And with that, let's just get to the clip. This is from the show Southside. And this is a clip from the show that caused a lot of controversy on Twitter. And here we go.
Good for you. Thank you.
You hear the sound? I want to make sure the sound works.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll restart it. A little context. This is a cop talking to an old lady who is squatting in a building that the cop owns. And I guess the old lady was a civil rights icon back in the day.
Good for you.
I
Thank
think
you.
this is a comedy
Oh,
show,
and I have
right?
good news. I think I found
Yeah.
a compromise for us. What you mean? So if you look in the bottom of this bucket, you will find the Section 8 form, and you'll definitely qualify. And I can help you if you want. I'm a living legend and you want me on welfare? No, I'm sorry. I hope your man beats you. Why would you say something like that? Oh, is it your woman? You eat coochie? You know what? See, that you could never be my favorite civil rights icon because it's Coretta Scott King. She is a genius. She's beloved. She is a queen. Fuck Coretta Scott King. Now, you may know her as King, but I just know her as Retta. I always thought she was so funny. But a bitch never made me laugh. One more motherfucking thing about Coretta Scott King. I will bust in broad daylight, bitch. I don't give a fuck. The bitch wasn't funny. I'm gonna call the sheriff tomorrow, and he's gonna come here and evict you. I'll be ready.
That's the end of the clip. Something I'll say real quick before we even get to the content of it. Why did this person hold the camera this way instead of the length way? So we get the person's full keyboard, but the edges of the screen are cut off. Like, why don't you hold your camera sideways so we can actually get the wide screen and cut the keyboard? That's just something that annoys me off the bat. Like,
I hate that shit too.
yeah. But that explains why they found it
Good
funny.
for
Because
you. Thank
anybody
you.
anybody who
Oh,
can
and I have good news.
record something like that does not have high standards, and that's also why they found this funny. But
You watched this show, right? Or you watched
I watched it after this because friend of the show, Jason England, who's appeared in the show before several times, he's has not seen the show either, but he said, "Oh, I heard the show was good," and I'm like, I can't see a show with this clip being good, but maybe. I said, so let me give it a shot. So I was cleaning my house and I left it on, and you just leave it on in the background and you just let it play, and it just was not funny. I mean, Black Lady Sketch Show is so bad that it always becomes interesting to watch because you just want to see like, okay, how did a human being write this? And how did 10 other human beings see it before it reached air and thought this was ready for prime time? And like, this is competent, and it feels like it's about to make you laugh at a lot of times, but when you actually stop and feel in your heart, is there a laugh building? Like, there's not. Like,
that
it's
shit's
like
not funny, not even
I
a little bit.
almost laughed, but I was trying to think, what is it that's making me feel like I should laugh? Or Like there's a part of me that I just want to say, oh, people say something's funny, but they don't actually laugh. And what I was thinking about was the story I heard about something called cargo cults. And what a cargo cult is, when they used to colonize different places in the jungles and the rainforests and stuff like that, um, the Westerners used to create little uh, makeshift runways in the jungle so that like cargo planes could come and land and take off from them and deliver supplies. And when they used to deliver supplies, a lot of the supplies they would give like to the locals, like to buy them off or bribe them or pay them and everything. So the locals would be in the jungle looking at this runway, and they would see the plane land and take off. And some people say that they thought it was some kind of magic bird. I don't know if it's white people infantilizing them or whatever, or but whether they thought it was a magic bird or a machine or it came from the gods or if they understood it or not, the main thing is they did not understand what made the plane come down. And what happened is they started mistaking correlation for causation. So they would just see, like, okay, when they put a bunch of boxes on the runway, not long after, the plane comes down, picks up boxes, and drops off boxes. So let's just put boxes on there. And they would think if they just put the boxes on there and it went back to the forest or the jungle, the plane would come. And because what would happen is after a while, the military abandoned the runway and it was just there. And they were just trying to figure out how do we make this plane come, but they don't know what makes the plane come or what makes it work. So then they started doing stuff even further, like they made these makeshift military outfits and they just started trying to recreate the military formations that the military people were doing on the base, because they were like, hey, the these guys used to dress like this and walk around in these weird formations, and not long after a plane would arrive.
Mhm.
So they were doing all types of stuff that they saw the white people doing uh, around the time the plane came down, in hopes of conjuring up whatever it was that made the plane come down.
Mhm.
And I started realizing these people are like that with being creative. Like, I don't think they actually understand how humor works, because when you see them tweet at you and try to diss you
Mhm.
or snap on you, if you ever notice, they're never funny. Like even this guy,
Never.
when he was trying like to snap on black men, it was always corny, you know. And if you look here at the replies, a lot of them are just saying are keying and saying how funny it is, and I don't think they're lying. Like they don't know what funny is, so they even laugh at corny stuff, you know.
I
Um,
don't see what was funny about it at all.
oh, it
Like
wasn't.
I watched it and I kept waiting to laugh. Like we're just like wait for something funny. Something funny is gonna happen. I didn't know what it was I was looking at when I first watched it, but I just couldn't figure out what it's supposed to be, and it wasn't funny at
Oh
all. I didn't
no.
laugh a little bit, and it was so over the top. It didn't like comedy to me has to have some level of realism, and there wasn't something I could ever actually see happening.
and
If
and
that
and
makes
speak
sense.
and speak of the devil, in the replies among the people who find it funny, Jason
Oh,
Johnson, he's like, plus family reunion, bruh, zero, Southside, the Wonder Years. He's like, we are at a point where you can watch majority black cast programming, blah blah blah. And so he's praising it.
wait, go back. I don't
Hmm.
understand his tweet. He's saying, what is he saying?
That there's just a lot of black shows out there. We're in a black renaissance, and
There's
he's
a
bringing up
black
stuff
show
like,
called Bruh. What is that?
I never heard of bruh.
Or
Um,
Zero?
Me neither. The Wonder Years looks terrible.
I
That
didn't
one.
even bother looking. It's
Yeah.
I can already tell it's they doing too much. In fact, I don't. It's coming across as like fake woke,
Yeah.
and I'm not a fan of that. Speaking of which, how like this for example, like what we just saw.
Mhm.
Not only is it not funny, but it was highly disrespectful. I thought it was disrespectful.
Yeah,
Um,
I thought it was disrespectful, but I could have tolerated a certain level of disrespect if they delivered on being funny, which I just don't feel like they did.
yeah, like I can you could have a guilt laugh, like oh that's fucked
Yeah.
up, but it's funny. You know what I mean?
That happened with me with the Boondocks and the Martin Luther King.
Oh,
speech where
absolutely. Well,
I
the
thought it was
Boondocks.
very disrespectful, but there were a couple of one-liners in there
Yeah.
that I thought were really funny, and I laughed in spite of myself because
Right.
hate him or love him, that guy can actually be funny. The guy who makes the Boondocks, and I feel like
Right.
this was trying to be Boondocks funny, but it's like the cargo cult. He watched Boondocks and he's like, okay, Boondocks disrespected a civil rights figure, and people pulled out guns a lot, and people laughed. So if I do that, because this is what I think. I think for these people, the plane is laughter, and the
I get where you're going. I got the
yeah,
metaphor.
yeah. So what happens to them is like they see funny people and actual talented people get popular and get laughs, and that's like what they see the military doing on the base, and the laughs are the plane. So they see the people do what they do, then the plane comes and they're like, so when they did X, Y, and Z, I saw people laugh. Since I don't actually understand how laughter and being funny and interesting works, I'm gonna guess it's like that stuff. So it felt like they were trying to do like the Boondocks live action with that
Yeah.
scene, but they don't know what makes the Boondocks funny or what makes anything funny.
But a lot of what made Boondocks funny to me, because I thought it was a really funny show.
Yeah, it
And
was
actually,
funny. Even when I disagreed on the politics, I always thought it was funny.
I disagree with a lot of the politics of a lot of shit, and I still can, appreciate the art of it or the humor in it. And I thought Boondocks what made that show funny was because they were making a lot of points that we've heard before, but in the cartoon form. So it was like, oh shit, that is something you hear Black people say, or that is something that you've seen, or that is a funny trope in the Black community that's actually being, and it was creative. I thought it was just well done. None of these new shits I think are funny. I think they're shoehorning the woke shit to the point where it's forced and it doesn't feel realistic. Because the reality is you don't have like woke shit, woke shit, woke shit, woke shit back to back in your life. You know what I mean? You just have life and then shit happens,
Yeah.
Imagine if every episode of Martin, it was some sort of like woke episode. That shit would be aggravating as fuck. But I do want to ask this question, and I'm actually curious to know what you guys think. Do you think there was a lot? Do you think today, with it being the quote unquote woke era, the era of Black Lives Matter, all these Black people on TV being groundbreaking and all that shit, this era now is more or less really pro-Black than what we were seeing in the 80s and 90s? And I'm asking that because if you think about the 80s and 90s, this is also the era where you have people like Farrakhan, or what's this other Black guy? What's the guy's name? Come on, you know his name. Khalid Muhammad.
Oh
They're
yeah,
like
Khalid
on
Muhammad.
TV
Yeah.
and they running their mouth. You know what I mean? And they talking. There's also a time I was thinking about, like, there's also the era of the Million Man March, right? This is
Yep.
also people used to say things like "Stay Black," that was like a thing, Even if you look at Martin, without being like, "Hey, we're a Black show," it was even the opening of the show. It's like kind of kente clothish, right?
Yeah, but you know how to get around that. This is what, and if you think about it, you'll see that you already know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. That's why they always slander hotepness, because they're trying to disqualify it. Because
Yes, that's a good point.
if you
Yes,
include hotep, but not even the original hotep, but if you notice, they have a very broad definition of hotep, where just
we
about anything that's not done by an intersectional feminist is a hotep. So even if it's
right,
done by a woman, it's a hotep. If it's
right.
so
Yeah, I get
what they
called a
do
hotep all the
is,
time. A
if
hotep.
that's
Me.
they've seeded the discourse with the idea that that's bad pro-blackness. So anything that you brought up, they would just say Martin Hotep, this Hotep, Khalid Muhammad Hotep, stay black. That's something Hotep
Right.
said, because this guy was calling everybody who didn't like this show Hoteps. And if you look at the people who were complaining about the show, it's all types of Black people that were saying this clip is not funny, But yeah, so I think that's how they get around what you said. They've
So do
biased the
you
playing
think
field.
do you think today's standards of pro-blackness are stronger than before, or do you think they're more pro-black than before? Do you think it's just more of a? I have my own answer to that, but I'm just curious to know what you thought, and I'm also curious to see what the
Audience
folks come
thinks.
up with in the chat room. And I see a lot of
Yeah.
stuff in the chat room. While you answer, I'll pull some stuff up from the chat.
Okay, cool. I think they created a narrower definition, and that narrow definition is anything that an intersectional feminist disagrees with is not pro-black. So I don't think it's stronger, because to be honest, the standards are weaker, because
Mm-hmm.
they're saying stuff like, oh, Insecure is the blackest show ever because it just showed black people existing. Like, they were saying ridiculous stuff like that with no, and they were saying stuff like it affirmed my blackness and all this stuff, ridiculous
Yes,
stuff. And that's actually a lower standard, but
I agree.
it's narrower
I'm,
because they're the only people who get to say what pro-black is in their mind.
I agree with that 100%. And I think a great example of that is if you like what was I gonna say? I lost my thought. I had it in my head.
Well, you're trying to remember
Well,
it.
what
I'll
did you
just
just say? Make the point that you just
okay,
made.
yeah. I make the point I just said. I said like it's a lower standard, and everything from just saying that blackness exists, or a black woman who's not perfect. Okay, go ahead. I heard you clap. Say what?
Sorry, y'all. I told you how my brain works sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, there was also this era we just had, which was every time you said fuck Trump, it was political. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Anything could be pro-black or progressive. This person hates Trump. And if you weren't on the hate Trump train, then you weren't progressive. So I think that also kind of these last 4 years definitely kind of pushed that along,
Yep.
where the standards are so low. And I'm just like, Trump is low-hanging fruit, because people would get mad at me for talking shit about the Democrats consistently. Obama, all them niggas. Hillary, I didn't fuck with none of them niggas, really, right? Well, I fucked with Obama at first. I was young. I didn't know no better. But when I started to learn more, I was like, actually, Obama ain't what I thought he was supposed to be either, you know? And the more I've understood how shit works, um, the less confident I became in anything that the government comes up with, or anybody that gets accepted into certain spaces, right? But I think that the lower, like hitting these low points, definitely, like Trump is low hanging fruit in that. Of course, we know he's racist. He's clearly crazy. Why are you and I talking about that shit? We not, but no. And then people say, why are you always talking about Trump? I mean, talking about Biden, talking shit about Biden. And I would just point out, like, hold on, if black people were voting for Trump, then I would talk about Trump. We talking about voting for Biden. I don't think we have to worry about black people supporting Trump. I think we have to worry about black people who think the Democrats are their saviors. So I think that gets lost on people, that the fact that you have to address what we're actually doing. Everybody knows Trump is racist. That's not surprise. You know what I mean? At least not for black folk. So why are we getting mad at other black people who are calling out the fact that no, it's these other folks you need to be looking at. These are the wolves in sheep's clothing. So that wokeness, I think, kind of got lowered during that era, because it didn't take much. Just say oh no, I support women getting paid more. Now you're a progressive. Now you're a liberal. Now you don't have to actually be for anything that actually makes change, right? And you can sit on social media and tweet that shit all day. You know,
Yep.
out here doing your activism. And tweeting stupid shit like, I refuse to stand for black men as long as they don't stand for me. Whatever the fuck they be talking about.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what they.
Yeah.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head on that. I think there was a lot of good points made in the chat, and I appreciate you guys for answering. Winfield said this era isn't even pro-black; it's pro-white acceptance
Yeah.
and pro-America, which essentially means selling out and disregarding some brutal truths. And I'm gonna narrow that, because what I think you're also saying, or in particular you're saying, is this has become the black statements. America was already on that bullshit. Black people weren't on that bullshit. I think we started to see that come in slowly, And I think a lot of it came in because of this era where you had all these loudmouth NOI people shouting shit on Donahue, and they weren't just on Donahue. You remember, and in fact, you put me onto shit. Gil Noble, who else was
Oh
out at the
yeah.
time? You put me onto a lot of the shit that was. It was on one of our podcast episodes with some great guests, which I also want to bring them back. Also,
Oh yeah, for sure.
but I think that time period, that because I think that that's still coming off of the 60s, right? That energy is still coming off of the 60s is still kind of going through the 70s and the 80s. So you have the cross colors, right? You have the um BETs coming out, right? You have these very black centered spaces because they were talking about buying black and black owned shit back then. People
Yep.
forget that's what the riots were about. They think that people keep thinking it's about solely Rodney King. There was shit. My mom tells me, and every older person I know that lived in LA at the time, they say no. That shit been bubbling for a long time. Rodney King was the straw that broke the
Make the
camel's
camel's
back.
back.
Because a year before that, or might have been less than a year, that's when they murdered that girl, Latasha Harlins. And I saw something on Twitter today that said today was her birthday. So rest in peace to Latasha Harlins. That was a little girl that got shot in the back of the head for allegedly stealing an orange juice and slapping the owner. So the owner, when she was no longer in danger, went and got her gun while this little girl was walking out. Basically, she said some shit she thought the girl was stealing. The girl, I don't know if she was or wasn't.
It turned out she wasn't, for what I
Yeah,
heard.
she wasn't. It was fucking orange juice. So it didn't even fucking matter if she was stealing or not. It's fucking
Yeah,
orange
yeah,
juice.
exactly.
This lady went and got her gun while the girl's walking out and then shot the girl in the back of the head. This lady was not in danger. She only got probation, right? So this shit like this is happening. Cops been knocking down niggas' doors in LA. I think people think that shit only happened in the fucking South. No, they had battering rams was banging in people's houses and shit. There was all this right off the crack epidemic. So people were already fed up. Remember, Freeway Rick Ross was out here, right? So this is like crazy shit happening out here before it even got to the Rodney King thing, right? But this is also a time when you hear all these black people talking about buying black owned. They didn't burn down black businesses during the riots. People don't talk about that. They can say, "Oh, you burn down your own community." No, we burn down they shit in our community, and I don't think people understand
Yeah.
that. And that's the energy of the 90s, so you have these black people who have the Like It Is the name of the show, Like It Is with Gil Noble. And when I saw that show, I mean, he's interviewing FBI informants, like real ones, not fake ones, real ones. And you can tell it's real because niggas clearly nuts.
Yeah.
um but you have this kind of content that's coming out. So you like even if I look at like Def Comedy Jam, notice there were a lot of pro-black jokes on there.
Oh
Sometimes
yeah.
they were clowning it, sometimes they were supporting it, sometimes it was just a part of just setting up a joke. But it was a very big chunk of that, right? So when you have these black faces as owners, but also black people speaking publicly about what's black and what we need to be doing, I don't think Farrakhan could organize a Million Man March today. I don't think it'll be
Oh,
possible.
oh no. I don't
You
think it
know,
would work.
and I think, and then people also think it was an NOI thing. It was actually a little bit. I think it was bigger than that. I'm not saying everything was great about it.
I went to the Million Man March.
Oh, you went to the first one, the original
Yeah,
one.
I was there.
That's
Yeah, it was everybody. Like people brought high school students, people brought
yeah.
college
I
students.
saw a lot of shit, and but this last one that they did wasn't even really a Million Man March. It
I
was
didn't
like,
know they even did it
yeah, they
different.
did some other march, and it was like a whole bunch of people. They had some Indian girl, not Indian. I don't know, she was Middle Eastern or something Middle Eastern girl speaking. Even it was in some Native American thing. It was not the real. It was weird, but I don't think the that same type of movement where it's predominantly or all black men. I don't think you could do that again. Um, so I think what the problem became is white media and white spaces, they do what they always do. Whenever we do anything, they
Yeah.
make it a business. They figure out how they can capitalize off of it. Oh shit, this brings an audience. Oh shit, these niggas is going a little too hard. Let's bring in some other folks that's not so uncomfortable, right? Then you get the people that Oprah liked to interview, the nice black people, you know,
Yeah.
um, you know, that talk about racism in a very different way, very nicely, you know, educating the white people, you know.
Yeah.
You bring in your Jane Elliott's because they like white people like to hear other white people, you know. So this is the transition. They start fading a lot of that out, and we have to make pro-blackness mainstream now. And I think it's way more mainstream today than it was then, as far as the conversation. Without actually being pro-black, the brand of sounding, I won't even say pro-black, the brand of sounding progressive, a black progressive, because they don't want you pro-black. They want.
Oh,
Notice they only. I always think about this.
mm-hmm.
Black people are the only ones, as far as I can tell, that are taught that our only identity is supposed to be this American identity. I'm not saying other groups don't have it at all, but
Yeah.
when you have your own culture, your own country, you know, it's a lot harder to really penetrate that in the same way. But because we, as African Americans in particular, or Black people in this country, and I'm going to actually include other groups that are in this country because I think a lot of it is the same sort of brainwashing, which is no, you have to not just assimilate, but you have to erase the idea of being your own group. You know,
Yeah. Um, Something that I was thinking about the other day, and I think I might have shared it with you guys. I can't remember, but it occurred to me the other day. Like, I was watching a Bell Hooks panel because there was a ridiculous quote by Bell Hooks, and I was joking about it on Twitter. And what the quote was, she was saying, to be queer, it doesn't matter who you have sex with. And to me, it does. Like, if you're gonna call yourself queer, you should have um something in your sexual identity that makes you queer. But what she was saying is, yeah, queer doesn't have anything to do with your sexual identity, although it can have something to do with that. All that matters is that you feel at opposition with uh the normal or regular world. That's all you need to be queer. And the reason why I don't like that, even though I'm not an LGBT community or anything, but I do think on principle that people should be allowed to gatekeep. And if gay people want to say that to be one of us in the LGBTQ community, you have to have sexual appetites that are not normally celebrated by the mainstream. I don't think people should be telling gay people, "Hey, I want to be under the Q and queer because I don't get along with my parents," or I I just have always liked Marvel comic books and I got picked on as a kid, because that's what they're trying to do with queer now, is just as long as you don't feel like you're normal somehow, you're okay to be, or if you feel too boring and vanilla, so like you meet people now who will tell you, yeah, I'm queer, and they present as a straight person, they date the opposite sex, they don't do anything different, and you're not supposed to ask them, well, how exactly are you queer? 'Cause if you do that, now you're gatekeeping queerness, and I feel like they want to do that to blackness next. Like, I'm telling you, in 5 years they will start entertaining Rachel Dolezals. If the right white person comes forth, if it's a white person these blue checks like that woman
oh,
that
Rachel Dolezal
was,
is going to be a revolutionary in the future. You know what I mean? That's how they're going to talk about her. Oh, she
yeah.
was demonized, but look at what, 'cause that's usually how things work, right? They're going to say, oh, in the day, this was demonized, and now today it's more accepted.
Oh,
There's
oh,
actually a
oh,
lot
oh,
of
yeah, Rachel Dolezal be like a pioneer, like she was persecuted as the first one,
right. There
but
were actually a lot of good comments in the chat. I didn't want us to overlook.
oh yes, please
I saw Info
do.
says there is something similar happening with people adopting non-binary designations.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about. I just meet people who are this non-binary or queer, and like someone's a non-binary, but they're born a man. They present as a straight white man. They only date straight white women. You know what I mean? But I also think too, a lot of white people have like oppression envy slash oppressor opt out, where it's like, hey, being just plain old white and straight just gives me no cultural cachet except as the white guilt guy. I've got to be made to answer for this left and right. I'm sick of this being my only identity. I want to be the other side for once. And now, like, white people are just looking for any type of second identity they can get that will now allow them to opt out of the oppressor definition. Like, now I had to spend my whole day just apologizing for, being cis and white and straight and whatever. So now everyone's claiming they're disabled, that they're on the spectrum, that they're queer, that they're non-binary.
No, I don't
I
like
I
that you
think some of these
can't.
people are real. I don't want to call everybody fake, but I do think there's some people who just want
But
to
that's the
be on the
problem.
oppressor side.
It is real for it's very real for people.
Yes.
But there are people who are trying to adopt this identity because there's nothing you can actually prove or disprove, right? So it's really, to me, fucked up because I literally I have a friend who transitioned, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I know what that pain, I can't say I know it, but I watched the pain that they went through, for years. That's real. You know what I mean? I find it to be extremely disrespectful because it's very real. It's the same thing with mental health. And I think it falls right in line with what you're talking about. You can't critique certain things because they might have an anxiety disorder or they might this person saying some foul, fucked up shit, but you can't check their ass
Oh
because
yeah.
they got a problem or whatever. And you guys know how I feel about mental health, right? This shit is very
I,
important to me.
I saw something that you would find interesting. Someone was talking about protecting yourself from narcissists, and then
Uh-huh.
some people came into the thread and they look kind of tumblery, and they're like, "I identify as narcissist," and what you're saying is ableist, and they actually try and make narcissists into an oppressed group. They're like, "Yeah, those of us in the narcissism community, consider like anti-narcissist stuff pushed by codependents to be ableism and a type of marginalization and oppression." And I was like, "Oh my
That is the
god,
most
the,
what's so
the
funny about that is it's
that's so
definitely
narcissistic."
narcissistic.
Yeah, but it's getting
That
like
is
that.
extremely
People,
narcissistic. It has to be
people are gonna
about
start
you.
saying, "Hey, I'm a victim because I'm a narcissist." It's gonna get that bad. I'm white and straight looking or
Oh,
whatever,
I
but
think
I,
I
I
think that's
I'm disabled.
already gonna be a thing. I wanted to also address something Jay Baldwin said. Jay Baldwin was a genius. James Baldwin was a genius. Got you. Go back. Why did you do that?
Oh, you got it.
I was reading it. And you just took it away from me. I got
No, I double clicked it by accident. That's what happened.
it.
It disappeared.
But yeah, so it said, he said, or I'm guessing he might be a she, you can be pro-black, but mainly if you're pro-black women. And I want to actually say that's true and not true at the same time. It's the illusion of being pro-black women. It's the illusion.
Yeah.
Because they ain't did shit about these mothers that are grieving over their children that were murdered by police. You get what I'm saying? They marched them. I tell you guys this all the time. We watched them march those black women across that stage of the Democratic National Convention when Hillary was running. Y'all remember that shit? Trayvon Martin's mama out there, Eric Garner's wife or daughter, or somebody was out there. All these black women. And not a single policy came out of that shit to address these police murdering our family members. Nothing came out of that. So no, they like the illusion of it's a brand. They're not pro-black women. You can't be pro-black women and be anti-black man. It doesn't work. It's impossible. It's impossible because we don't exist without each other. So there's literally no way you can be pro-black women and be anti-black male. It doesn't. It's impossible because those
But like,
women still have children. Those women still have fathers and uncles and brothers. We're not disconnected from each other. So when I see that shit and people say, "Oh, it's pro-black women," no, they're using us. And I want black women to wake up and hear that shit. That's why I'm flipping out about it right at this very moment. I want black women to hear this shit. They don't fuck with you. They don't give a fuck about you. You are a brand. You're making them look more progressive so more people will buy their shit and feel like they're less racist. They're using your shit. They're
well,
not about us. Go ahead,
the
T.
black the black woman that pretended to believe in it, I don't think they even really believe it themselves. They know that the only black women that um those people care about are a very certain tribe of them. Live in certain cities. They have natural hair. They read Crimley Crenshaw on bell hooks, and there's a whole package, and they know that this is not anything that's being done for all black women, but they themselves don't care about black women. Like for example, I think a big reason why so many of them even have natural hair is that they don't have to go to like the black hair salon that
Mhm.
does all the pressing and everything. I think it's a little too spicy for them. So um
No, they
they
ain't gonna fail. No.
yeah, they don't want to be part of any space like that. So for them, it actually makes sense to promote this stuff because in their mind, they're people who are competing with black men for media jobs. They're competing for TV writing jobs, for political jobs in the DNC. And I think that's all they really want. And I think that's where this black, straight black men or the white people of black people comes from, is that they want to make black women into its own race, if that makes sense.
Yes.
um
Yes.
it's a very weird thing, but they will talk about black people versus black women as if they're talking about two different races, and it's so um bizarre.
I watch it a lot. I see that a lot. And it's been happening for a long time. I feel like I watched it. I feel like I watched the early stages of a lot of this shit. Um, I remember when Fort Harriet was blowing up all over the internet, and Madame Noir, I think it was the other one. These pro-black women or black women-centered publications that were very divisive. They pushed a lot of anti-black male um, rhetoric. And the funny thing, and this goes back to the point that James Baldwin was a genius said, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I did, and I might have mentioned this on the podcast, so if you listen to the podcast, you're going to hear the story twice. Um, One of the things I did when I was a hip hop writer, right, is I was noticing how a lot of publications would do this thing once a year where they go, it's Women's History Month. Here are the top female rappers you should know. How the fuck would I know them if you never talk about them any other time?
Mm.
Right? So I noticed that forharriet.com would do shit like that, right? They would do this shit where they write all these articles because they want clicks. So whatever names are going to be in the headlines, that's who they're going to put in their headlines because that's where the clicks are coming from. When Iggy Azalea was popping, that girl got so much unnecessary press, it was
Oh my god,
ridiculous.
so much.
And a lot of them were these black female writers and articles and publications, For Harriet being one of them. Now, I ended up writing an article, the top female rappers we're dedicated to covering, right? So there were these 10 female rappers, might have been, I think, ended up having 11. And we literally stuck to that. We stuck to interviewing those women constantly, keeping up with what they were coming out with. Anytime they came out with something, we posted it up on our website. We were staying on top of that, right? So I know that you can do this. forharriet.com has 10, 20 articles about Iggy Azalea. You know what other female rapper was popping and boiling at the time? Rhapsody.
Yeah.
If unless her name was Nicki Minaj or Iggy Azalea, you wasn't getting on For Harriet. They had a whole article written by some idiot talking about Kendrick Lamar's album and was anti-black women or something. And there was a white baby on the cover of To Pimp a Butterfly, and it was ridiculous. It was some bullshit. And I looked in For Harriet. I started searching different female rappers' names that were kind of boiling in the hip hop scene. I looked up Nitty Scott. I looked up Rhapsody. I looked up who else was Il Camille and all these other rappers that were out at the time, right? None of them, except Rhapsody, was mentioned in an article listed. It was no headline. None of them were in the headlines. But this is in my mind. This is a pro-black woman article. They got
Yeah.
articles complaining about hip hop. They have articles complaining about Iggy Azalea, but I'm not seeing no articles about Rhapsody.
Well,
And
the
she's got
problem is they're not any more acquainted with the black community than white people. So they only know black acts that white people know. If you ever notice, they only ever the only time they know a black person that white people don't know is if it's a black person that's popular on Twitter, because their whole black community is Twitter. That's the only type of black space I think a lot of these people have, is a social media black space. So yeah, they don't know those people. They know Nicki and they know Iggy Azalea because that's what's on the Grammys. That's what's in the mainstream. That's what white people know. Like they're
Right.
only like half a step ahead of white people when it comes to understand the black community, and I think that's a big problem. Kamari is making some good points. She says
Good
for Harry,
point. Yo,
for,
Kamari
yeah.
has been on point with almost everything she said in the chat room.
Oh,
So
she's always on point.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, for her, yeah, doesn't, of course she doesn't. Kimberly Crenshaw is her name. No, she does. You know, she doesn't because she didn't. Yeah,
No,
she's obsessed with
Kimberly
women.
Foster. Yeah, Kimberly
Foster.
Foster. Yeah.
I mixed them all up. Foster. Um, Whatever. Kimberly Foster. All of them get on my nerves. But anyway,
Yeah.
she's obsessed with white female entertainers. I'm not surprised. All these people are. Like T pointed out, that's why they always want to compare their work to Friends and Sex in the City and all these white versions of things. I didn't never once did I see them say in that same article, they didn't say, yo, we saw the impact that Girlfriends had and we wanted to bring that back. We thought that was important for the culture and for women to see themselves, whatever bullshit you're gonna say. But there was a way to acknowledge your past and what has been created, which by the way, I think the executive producer was Kelsey Grammer, but the girl that created it was a black woman.
Oh yeah, Mara Brock Akil. She is the one
Yeah.
that created it. She also created Being Mary Jane and The Game.
Yeah.
So she's a black woman that created 3 shows, but they said that Insecure is only the second show that was created and starred a black woman, even though there was that one, there was the Wanda Sykes show, and there were like
I
several.
forgot about Wanda Sykes show. That was actually pretty funny. I actually thought that was a funny show.
Yeah, yeah. The reason I put this up is like a lot of people say this, like, oh, they want power for themselves in the system and will trample on black men to get it, but they'll trample on black women too. If you're like, that's a dirty secret about them is that they don't even like most black women outside of their narrow group. Because if you're like a black woman and you say like that divestors are white supremacists or that you don't hate black men, they will say some of the nastiest things to black women I've seen uh anywhere. They'll call them slurs, they'll call them nappy headed mammies and all types of crazy
They'll
stuff.
say
So
black men wouldn't even want you because look at you, you're dark skinned and you have nappy hair, you got a wig or you wear a weave. This men, but it's like what's funny about that? None of these niggas are saying that shit. It's you.
yeah,
You the
yeah,
one saying it.
exactly.
It's what you think of me.
Yeah, exactly. They say all this stuff. And yeah, and the thing that is that they say black men think about black women is what they actually think about black women. And
Exactly.
it's
And you're right.
crazy.
Also, they want people who they don't fuck with people like me. And
Yeah.
to be real with you, most black women they probably wouldn't fuck it. I don't even
No.
know black women who talk like half them women. I don't.
No, they only live in a handful of cities, and their numbers are not that big, but they're so overrepresented in media. They seem bigger than they are, and I think they
Every
want to.
black woman I know who's in my age range, who's unmarried, all is saying, I want a black man. All of them. 98% of us are with black men. We date outside of our race less than any other group outside of Asian men. We might be more than them. We do it. We are so people say that shit. Think about that shit. Black men date out of their race more than black women do, right?
Yeah,
So clearly, most black women you're gonna meet are not gonna be divestors. Like you'll be hard pressed to find a divestor. Black women, we love black men. Most of them are dying to have a black man raise their children. So I don't know where this bullshit comes from. And I don't like that they push that shit because some of them push that shit and then they either be with a black man, which is funny to me too. I be seeing that shit. So they just be pushing this shit, just be talking on the internet to be talking. And then you got the motherfuckers that really live that life and all they doing is cooning anyway.
yeah, but I mean, even the ones who aren't sworders or divestors, but I just mean the people who are in that um space. Like how do I put it? Like those people who are vying for these media and these. For example, that Brittany Packnetti girl, she is the one that was doing the ad for the New Wealth, remember? And she was defending the white female curator at the hip hop museum and all that stuff. Like, yeah, she married a black guy and everything, and she never talks about swirling or divesting. But she, I think, is still in that group that will not mess with a lot of these black women out there who,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, I want to put this up real quick before
Oh, real quick, I wanted to make.
go ahead,
I thought
please go
Phil
ahead.
made a really good point.
Mhm.
Things were motivated by self determination, and I think that's a really good point when we had that conversation about the '80s and '90s
Yeah,
content in media. Um, Now it's the acceptance of permanent subjugation and getting the best deal for you. Paying a people to divide and destroy themselves saves them doing it. I thought
yeah,
that was a really good point. That's wanted to make that. Want to make sure
and
that was.
and to add to that, something I was talking to, I think I was talking to you guys about this too. Is I feel like when I was watching this Bell Hook speech, it was 2 hours of just pure like gibberish. Like I can't express how much this thing was just gibberish. It was like absolutely nothing, but everyone kept framing it as revolutionary, etc., and all this stuff. And I realized, you know what, the race war is over. Like we lost it. I don't know when. Maybe it was the late '60s. Maybe like I was talking with different people, and I was like, if the race war ended, when did it end? Some people said in the '80s when they, took out Huey Newton, like one of the last ones, like that was like the dying years. So, but we all agree that the race war was at full steam in the late '60s with Black Power, and they won. But the genius is if they told us that they won, then people might go back home and regroup and come back even stronger. Like do some spooky sat by the door stuff. What they did that was wonderful was they said the war is still going on, but you guys are actually gaining ground. Like they actually won the war, but just didn't tell the other side that they lost and let them think that they were gaining ground. Because when I was watching that Bell Hooks thing, and what she was talking about, and I was like, we lost. Like we went from talking about Fred Hampton and killing pigs and uh,
Mhm.
Huey Newton and Kwame Ture and Elaine Brown and Fannie Lou Hamer to someone talking about loving yourself is the most radical act you can do, and having boundaries and having friendships is a revolutionary political. And I was like, this is just eat, pray, love. This is the secret. This is just a bunch of woo. And if this is what revolution is now, and this is what speaking truth to power is, then we lost. This is all controlled opposition.
I agree. I mean,
Yeah,
I hate the idea of saying we lost the race war, only because in order for me to continue to do the things that I do, I have to remain optimistic. At least, and even if I have to direct it a certain way, I have to. It's like with some, I talk to people all the time, people who work with kids or would never work with kids. I always say this thing, well, you can't save everybody, right? They'll tell me that all the time, and it's real, it's true. You can't save everybody. And as a person who's been working with um kids and families for a long time, I had to learn that I can't save everybody. But when I'm working with a child, I cannot have in my head that I cannot save everybody. I got to have in my head, I got to help at all costs because this child's life is that valuable. That's what keeps me motivated. I have to maintain this idea that there's changes that can be made. So I don't like the idea. I don't think you're wrong at all. It's hard for me to accept that because at the end of the day, there are things we have to be doing now because there are Black children dying now. There are Black families suffering now. Maybe we can't save the entire race of Black people. And specifically, I'll say African Americans, only because we don't have a home country outside of this one. But I feel like if we have this idea that we've already lost, it stops us from working or motivating us. And I think it may causes you to become more selfish in a way. And that's not a bad thing. I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with making sure you're taken care of. But if you're a person like me who's always been kind of others oriented, it's a little bit um jarring to hear even.
Oh, I think it's definitely jarring, but the way I
Yeah.
look at it like is this. I think someone could be positive or as empowering as they want even within that context because I mean, I think if the whole reason why white people have hid from us that we lost, I think it's precisely because it's enraging, it's empowering, it's galvanizing. And to give you an example, look at Germany in World War II. They
Mm.
lost World War One completely and totally. And then they were demoralized. They were in the place of poverty and just decadence. And they just had um nothing. They were given all these sanctions for their role in World War One, and that disaffectation and that totally demoralized feeling. I was watching this movie over the weekend called Cabaret, and it really captures that feeling. It's very interesting, interesting
I have to
movie.
watch that. It was funny because I was about to say, "Oh, somebody told me about that," but that was you.
Yeah, let me show you. Let me show you this scene. This scene is really powerful, but this comes because everybody is so demoralized and um so this is the scene. I'm gonna take this off the screen, but this scene like sent chills down my back. Hold on, let me stop sharing this one and then share this other one. But these two are sitting down and they both hate the Nazis, but the Nazis are rising in power and everything is demoralized and depressing in Germany after World War One.
To Africa.
A- Actually, you know what? Let me stop this version because there's a better one. Hold on, because the one I want to show actually has the lyrics. Okay, so I'm gonna do it again.
The stag in the forest runs free, but
So this kid
gather
starts singing in the field.
together to greet the storm. Tomorrow belongs to me. The branch of the
It turns out he's a Nazi.
linden is leafy and green. The Rhine gives its gold to the sea. But somewhere a glory awaits unseen. Tomorrow belongs to me.
So like what's happening here is everybody is like poor, depressed, hungry, demoralized, and the Nazis come and they basically the lyrics in this song is all about like the lion in the field and the babe in the cradle is closing his eyes and opening to a new world. Tomorrow belongs to me, and they were able to really take everybody's rock bottomness and provide them a type of rentable machismo. They came in with big shoulder pads. They came in with leather boots. They came in with this idea of a strong masculine German identity. And if you watch how the rest of the clip goes, and the babe is in the cradle is closing his eyes, the blossom embraces the bee. Like this is the new world that's coming, and we're gonna be at the forefront of it. So these two are kind of seeing how the country's going. Like all these demoralized people are being kind of hypnotized by this thing. And I think to white people in the 60s, that's what they saw when they saw Black Power, when they saw like people under the spell of Fred Hampton, when they saw people under the spell of uh, Bobby Seale and Huey Newton and Stokely Carmichael. Like to them, I think it was as terrifying as this. And America learned from World War II, you can't just defeat people that much and leave them demoralized because it leads to this. It makes them come back even angrier and stronger and even more cohesive and united. So for World War II, they had the Marshall Plan. They helped Germany out. They held their hand through it. They didn't just crush them and you know spit on the corpse after. And now we have a very different Germany. And I think so. Like what I'm saying is, I think you can find um, positive rallying things in total defeat, and I think that's actually the whole reason why they don't want us to know that we lost. They want us to be like pacified and believe that we're part of the new project. And I think the most powerful switcheroo they've done in propaganda is that they took an old idea, a pre-revolutionary idea, which was assimilation and integration. Then they took the tone of what came after and was seductive, which is like revolution and rebellion and radicalism. And they've used the tone of what they're scared of, which is radicalism, but swapped in the content of what they like. So now what we have is what I call radical assimilation or radical integration. Like that's what people are talking about when they talk about like bell hooks and Issa Rae to me. Like they're using the language of radicalism to describe the opposite of radicalism, which is conforming. So it's like, yeah, she got a seat at the table. That's revolutionary. That's radical. Like, this is radical um striving. It's yeah, yeah. It's a so I think that being honest with the fact that we lost actually helps us know how much work we have to do and can even energize energize us. But when you think that you're winning and you still have a chance to win, how much do you really want to rock the boat? You know, it might be better to just bide your time or just kind of chill out. That's all I have to
I
say.
just realized I was on mute.
Oh, okay. I was wondering why you're so quiet. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say no. That's actually a really, really good point. Um, I think that's interesting because if you think about even how classism works, it's very similar. Middle class Black people don't want to rock the boat. They get to live good. You know, they get to live in this neighborhood and they get to send their kids to this school. They get to play with other kids and they get to do. So they don't want
Yeah.
to fuck that up for their family, right? Um, so I
I'll
think
say
what you're,
this. I'll
uh-huh.
say this. Black people, I think, before the Black Power time, were Germany after World War I. Like they crushed and destroyed Black people so much, and they learned that this time we can't give them nothing to lose.
Mm, yeah, because, and I think that's the thing when you're when you feel like you have nothing to lose, you're more likely to fight. And I
Yeah.
think that's what some people, and I would say myself included, I was hoping would happen with these niggas when Trump was in office, but it ended up just being more of the same, if not worse. In fact, I'll
Oh
say it
yeah.
got worse. That's where the standards got lowered, actually. So instead of us rising to the occasion, we lowered the standards of what it means to be progressive or pro-black or any of that. So I think everything you're saying has a lot of I think there's a lot of validity to that. Absolutely.
Um, I just want to pull up something. I think it's a good place to end it, and then I'll give you. Oh, end
Yeah,
it for me. End it for me at least, and I'll give it to you.
we're
But this
both
is the same.
ending. I
Oh,
gotta eat dinner at some point.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's get this done. I will say this. This is the original tweet that we're talking about, where the guy was putting the um South Side outside thing. I want to show you something real quick. Let me just get, get it back up here. But something I noticed about the people who liked it, and I feel like we should start calling them the cargo cult. But so he put it up. He said, "Oh no, this is the wrong one. That's the one where he but he was praising Southside. He's like, it warms my heart to see so many folks discovering Southside today. Y'all are in for a treat. You know, HB has to do better about promoting it. You know, etc. And a lot of people are joining in with him. That Southside is hilarious, and people are like, I just discovered this show today. Southside is on another level. But something I kind of noticed, right, when you go through um a lot of the people who love Southside and these threads, and this is the original thread, right? This is something that I just want to show. And I'm gonna you see I'm doing this in real time. So some people are like, oh, what's so funny? This isn't funny. This is the slave play crowd. Some people brought in diaspora war stuff and said it had to be written by an immigrant. That always has to happen. But um, I want to get there was a point I wanted to get to. Let me find it. Mm. Okay, so so screams. I have to watch this, right? And this is what I find interesting. Whenever he found something, someone says something positive about it, the profile was always a very similar. So this is the first one I found. So there's a gay African Canadian agnostic software developer. Hashtag All Black Lives Matter. Hashtag Queer Lives Matter. Hashtag Queer Nigerian Lives Matter. So I want to find. Is this someone saying I'm crying like they're enjoying it? And then you look and it's like I write things. So this person is a writer. Most of the people were either gay or in entertainment or both. This is where I absolutely lost it. This person's agreeing. Um, and I don't know if this person's a writer or not, but they have 2,500. But basically, whenever I went through it and people liked it, because see, most people don't like it. They call it minstrel shows. But okay, here's someone who likes it. Most of the people who like it, it's actor slash writer slash producer. Um,
They're
and
like
everything else.
cops. They're all backing each other up.
Yeah, but they're all into entertainment or gay activism. So this person liked it. I think they're not even black. Uh, this white person likes it, and he works in media. He's a blue check, and Moneybag Hoes responded to him. It's so good. I thought it was funny to see what this person has a low follower count, so they might be a wanted check. They might be planning to this person's defending it. Let's see what their story is. Showrunner. Actually, no,
Oh, a
that's the first
showrunner.
person.
Yep.
Yeah, so basically it's like it's very interesting the disconnect. Like just about everybody that first of all, I see the vast majority of people didn't like it. But then you just keep seeing all these people who like it and they're all in um entertainment, like they're all writers or actors or directors or multi hyphenates or they're into some kind of queer activism. And I don't want to say it's because they're gay, because there were a lot of gay people who didn't like it, but
Yeah, there
those
were.
people weren't part of, that particular hashtag
Circle.
all Black Lives Matter type of crew. So yeah, I just find that kind of interesting. Like it really is like a cult. When I call it a cargo cult, it's a small group of people in a tribe that don't. And I think that show is a perfect example of the cargo cult thing, because when you watch it, has anybody in the chat watched it? Like, it has the structure of a comedy, and it's only the structure and all the superficial stuff that lets you know it's supposed to be a comedy, but the laughs never come. Like, they just kind of take things from other shows and put them together and hope they fool you into thinking you're watching something funny.
Yeah. I just feel like a lot of people try to make it's like I forgot who said this, so I think I'm stealing this from someone, and I wish I knew who I stole it from. Maybe it was you, maybe it was someone else. But someone pointed out, like, this is a lot like the Emperor's New Clothes. Where, oh no, I think you sent us a link with was it you that sent a video? Or maybe I seen it on Twitter. A video of a guy making this point about comedians who not being funny, but it's like the Emperor's New Clothes, and where everybody's was that you
Oh
posted
yeah, yeah. The Unfunny Mafia.
the Unfunny Mafia. And this guy was basically saying that if you guys know the story about the Emperor's New Clothes, it's an old story they would tell children where this emperor, was really rich, and he loved to be praised. He loved everybody. Hi, Cash is Cole Cash is sending his folks over to us on Twitch.
Oh,
Thank
nice,
you.
nice.
Thank you, Cole Cash. We're leaving we're leaving soon though. But at any rate, so Emperor's New Clothes is this guy, emperor, he's rich. He has this guy comes up and it's like, yo, I'll make you like the flyest outfit, ever. It's made of the most expensive materials, and only the people who are certain types of like wise people can see it, or only certain types of people can see it. People who are bad people, they're not going to see, but people who are good people, they're going to see these beautiful clothes. So they make this announcement that he's going to have these clothes and all this stuff. Emperor keeps paying this guy all this money to get this invisible stuff, but the emperor doesn't want to admit he also can't see the materials because he wants to be seen as a good guy. So he's pretending like, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you this money. He don't see shit. But he's pretending because this guy convinced him that if you
and maybe good at marketing themselves and maybe good at capitalizing on whatever's out there, but you know they're not funny. I know they're not funny. You can see it and feel it.
Okay.
Crap.
But at any rate, so just to explain the story, people might not know that story. So he goes out to show the people his new outfit after they announced that only certain people who were smart or wise or good people could see it. And, he's out there, he's modeling. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, we love it. None of them can see shit either, but they don't want to be outed as not being this good person or whatever the fuck. I forgot exactly what they were supposed to be, but whatever.
Yeah, I think the story is supposed to be that you have taste and refinement, so if you don't have any good taste, you can't see the clothing.
Yeah, but I think it was something else though, like a personality thing. Because what ended up happening was some kid, a baby, like a little child, starts shouting out, "Hey, he's not wearing any clothes."
Yeah,
and it was basically
everyone
like,
starts laughing.
A kid, this is an innocent child. Like clearly, they're not a bad person. So that's when it basically comes exposed that the emperor is not really wearing any clothes. But anyway, so that's what the Emperor's New Clothes story is. And that's kind of what's happening in comedy. And this guy that he's about to show you gave that as an example.
Yeah, exactly. And someone made a good point. You have to give your opponent an exit strategy, which white people gave us, pacification, assimilation, for sure. But this was, I thought, a really good clip. The irony is, I've seen this guy's comedy, and I don't think he's that funny himself, but he still makes a good point here. It says Tim Dillon.
And we've let them into the comedy community, and we've allowed them in. Because a lot of these people that write these ridiculous articles are part-time stand-ups, or they work in the business. And they've been received with open arms because there are a lot of comics out there that are not funny, and those people need press. And these people, these media types that do comedy sometimes have access to the press, and they write articles. But unfunny people are loyal to each other the way the mafia used to be. This is true.
And I was just saying real quick, like when you watch this, don't take it narrowly to just be about stand up, because I feel like it's a broader point. Like it happens with TV, with movies, and it happens with the black world too. Like a lot of these people who are covering the same way a lot of these people are stand up, are part-time stand-ups who write these articles, then they cover other famous unfunny people and give them positive coverage. A lot of these people who are writing about movies and TV shows or whatever, they're supposedly critics, but they're part time trying to break into movies and TV themselves. They don't want to stay a critic. So the same parallels that he's describing, don't listen to it like in a literal narrow sense, but think of the larger picture and the different parallels to the stuff that we talk about.
People that are not good at this band together. And I mean, they may be good at a million things. They may be good at networking. They may be good at marketing themselves. They may be good at capitalizing on whatever's out there. But you know they're not funny. I know they're not funny. You can see it and feel it. You crowds tell them they're not funny. The things they do online are never funny. They're clever occasionally. On Twitter, they can make a pun. It's funny. It's for a second. But it's not that real guttural laugh. The laugh that people spend decades trying to perfect their craft, the laugh that Patrice O'Neill got, the laugh that people like fucking Joan Rivers got, those guttural fucking laughs, these people are not getting. They never will get them. And they're angry about that. That kind of pisses them off. But what they've done is they've built a career on everything but that, everything but funny. And in order to do that, you need other people who have your back, who will go, no, they're great. What are you talking about? It's like the emperor has no clothes. All the emperors, many of the emperors, completely naked, walking around town. You need other people to go, yeah, absolutely. You look great. And you watch these trailers for these specials, and you say to yourself, you're like, oh, a lot of these people have talent, but it's not the kind that evokes laughter from a room full of people. It's not.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of what's happening with a lot of these TV shows and this constant booster society. Like there are people who are less famous versions of the people that they're promoting, and it's like a two-way street. The people who are untalented at the basics but are in the game need people not in the game to promote them, but who have platforms, and the people with the platforms but who haven't broke in yet, they need someone to bring them along. So it's kind of like a trade. Like, you promote my Unfunny show, and then later on I'll help you break in, and maybe you could work for me, or do X, Y, and Z, which happens all the time. People are hiring their own stands off of Twitter. Chrissy Teigen, for example, had someone write a profile of her. Someone wrote a profile of Chrissy Teigen for a magazine, and then before the article even came out, the profile, Chrissy Teigen offered this person a job at the new media empire before the article even came out. And the place that commissioned the interview, the profile, still ran the piece. And people were like, how can you even run the piece? The whole thing should be compromised.
Right.
But all you did was just put a little disclaimer. Between the writing and printing of this piece, our author was hired by Chrissy Teigen to run her media empire.
Because you have to remember, they still want to stay in the good graces of these celebrities, the publication itself. So whether this writer is here or not, we still want Chrissy to fuck with us.
Yeah, exactly. They want her to fuck with them, but then they also want the people watching, a lot of them who are supporting it are also like writers who hope one day they can sell out and get somebody to hire them for their media project too. And they get to be in with a famous person and whatever, because they don't want to stay in the freelance writing ghetto. So yeah, it's and I think it's the same thing that we saw with that Southside clip. Everyone that was responding to it was somebody who wanted to do exactly what they were doing on that show. It was somebody who was a writer, somebody who wanted to break into media somehow, and Yeah, and they're angry, like you said, like they're angry
Yeah.
that nobody's fucking with them. Like 75% of the thread is people laughing, and you saw the guy had a follow up tweet getting upset at people for not liking Southside.
Yeah. Um, so Salam, yes. Adam Seals and Two Dope Queens are like perfect examples to me. None of them are funny. I have to go, but I did want to make this
Same here.
one last point before we go. The other thing that makes things hard with these people is that it's hard to actually be a fan of something because they start to be super fucking extra.
Yeah.
Betty White died.
Oh
These
God.
motherfuckers thought, I mean, you would have thought she took a bullet for Malcolm X the way that they were acting. She touched a nigga's arm or she let somebody on this or her TV show or whatever. It's just like, yo. And I actually think she's a good actress. I actually watched a lot of the shows that she had or she was on. I thought she was funny. She's a really good improvisational actress. I thought I used to watch Mary Tyler Moore show. You guys know I like old TV shows. I watched Mary Tyler Moore show. I thought she was funniest on there, then more funny than she was on Golden Girls because she was like a little hot tamale. She was trying to get niggas' husbands and shit. The bitch was funny, to me. I couldn't even really express that because I didn't want to get lumped in with these fucking weirdos.
Oh
It was
yeah.
just it was just like, yo, I don't even want to say nothing. So I just said, yo, I liked her as Rose on Mary Tyler Moore show. That's just left it at that. Because I just I want like even Insecure, like I'm a fan. I even told you how I felt like it was groundbreaking. But I also didn't want to get lumped in with those other weirdos. So people started thinking I hated people started thinking I hated Insecure or that I was against people being fans of Betty White. It wasn't that. I just think it's people just got to be way too extra. You can be a fan and just appreciate somebody's art, their talent, their work without making them some type of deity. you
I
know?
feel like there's this thing with a lot of these people, right, where they're they have things like virtue signaling and terms like that. I think their version of virtue signaling is something that will remind people that they're not one of the savages, and whenever they get a chance to let white people know that they like something that white people like, a lot of them go real over the top. And I like Brady White too. I was a fan of her performance from Golden Girls, and I like the stuff that she's done after. I think she has a great comedic timing and everything. But I'm like you, it's like she was 99, and at the end of the day, 99-year-old white American. I mean, she probably dropped some N bombs in her day. I'm not gonna, go too
You
crazy
know
over her.
she
Who
did.
knows? Yeah, she was
I think
around
it
the
was
gym
Jamel. He said that she drank at a white only's water fountain.
at some point in her life, and
You know she did. Come
yeah,
on.
it is what it is, but I mean, she's done some nice things for black people too, and that's nice. But I mean, she
No, she
she
did
wasn't
a
John
nice
Brown.
thing. No, let's stop. She did
She
a
wasn't John
nice
Brown.
thing for a black guy. I didn't see no other stories other than that one fucking story about this one thing she did for this one black guy. Then you would have thought she marched in the civil rights movement.
She was hiding Harriet Tubman or something. Yeah, I mean, they went really over the top, but I feel like those people have a lot of white followers, and I think it's their way to signal to the white followers, like, "I's mad like you, boss." I think that's what they're trying to do. Like, it's like the Malcolm X and the house slave is like, "We sick, boss." What's wrong?
yeah.
I think that's what they're trying to do. It's like the same way that Kenny said that they try to do more than what they were asked to do by white people when it comes to like cooning and selling out. Like one thing I noticed like they do too, they try to over exaggerate and over empathize with whatever white people are doing. So if white people are mad about something, like when that ice and cages thing happened, with the Hispanic kids in cages, they
Mm-hmm.
were going so crazy for those Latino kids in cages. And I'm not saying that wasn't something to be outraged about, but have you seen foster care in America? Like there's
Right.
black kids in cages all
They
the
don't
time.
they
Like this
don't go equally as hard on anything. It's always about what white people are upset about. You're absolutely
yes.
spot on.
Exactly. Like there's black mothers giving birth in cages all the time over some bullshit that Child Protective Services did that got the people locked up. In fact, some of those same people, when you bring up what Kamala Harris did with truant mothers and putting some of
Mhm.
them in jail, they'd
They
be
make
like, "Oh, fuck
excuses.
them. Who cares?" You
Yeah,
know?
they make all types of excuses. And don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, I literally was heartbroken seeing when you see all this footage of these kids and these
Yeah,
um
yeah, exactly.
things.
I'm not saying the kids don't deserve pity, but
I'm just saying no humane person can look at that and feel nothing, right?
yeah.
But it felt like it was so performative. It
Yes,
wasn't
it's coming from an
sincere.
insincere space.
And really, only white people only cared about it because it was Trump. They didn't even care about it when Obama was doing it. Shit wasn't new. And they don't care about it now.
Yeah, exactly. Biden's keeping them in cages, and they don't care. But when the white people were mad about it, they were exaggerating how mad. Like, I'm twice as mad as you, boss. You know. But then
Yo,
when they're happy about something, they want to exaggerate how happy they are. So I think they're always trying to see the pulse of what masses doing, and then throw on whatever extras on it. And I
it's
think even
like
white people
those
were like, okay, chill. Like, what's going on?
it's like those black people who had to always make it known that they weren't into the things that black people liked. You know,
Exactly.
like, oh, black people didn't fuck with me because I liked rock music. You know what's so funny about that? I grew up
Yeah.
listening to rock music. I told you guys, my
Yeah.
dad's a guitarist, right?
Yeah.
Nobody gave a fuck. Like, it was
But
nothing.
but also you
Some of
probably
them
weren't
listened to rock
broadcasting it
music.
every 24/7.
Yeah, but a lot of kids listen to rock when out. They might not know all the songs. They might have fucked with some shit. Like they make it out like black people are the most closed-minded people on earth, and that they have to always prove to white people that they're into the shit that they're into so they can be accepted. When I liked rock, I didn't even know no white people like that. I just liked rock music. That's what I grew up listening to in addition to everything else I listened to. And I went
people
to
who
school with
yeah,
go ahead.
people who know my musical taste, know that I have a very diverse musical taste, but I never got into trouble for it. But I did see black kids who got picked on for liking, like, punk and heavy metal. But this is what the common thing with them were. They would dress up like and shave the middle of their head and have a blue thing like that. Like, I remember, like, this is like in the early 90s, some black kid, had skin tight denim outfit with metal Satan patches
I've
on it.
seen I've seen like that 80s punk pictures of
Yeah,
black because actually the punk scene I think was a lot of black kids in that.
yeah.
Um yeah.
But you
They
couldn't dress like that and then hang out in the hood. You had to make your choice. And
if it was
so
just the music, it would be no problem.
yeah, so basically, if you were dressed like a weirdo in any way, even if it was like in a
Right.
black way, like if somebody came out in the blackest outfit, but it was like a 70s pimp outfit, they would have just beat your ass too. But a lot of us liked eclectic music. We just didn't try to like dress out of like a hair metal video. Like a lot of them used to do like weird.
That's a good
Uh,
point because the
yeah,
goths, the kids in my school, so my era in the 2000s was goths when I was in high school. So you know what the goths are? These are the kids dressed in all black.
yeah.
They listen to like Corn and what's the other one? Like
The
the
like the
not
Cure
Slash. What's
and
another one I liked? I can't think of what it's called. But it's like no, they're like real hardcore rock shit, and they would wear all black and wear big leather boots in LA. Leather coats and shit. One dude, they used to call him a school shooter. He would wear all black
yeah.
every day. He had a hat and everything. He'd always get in trouble because he's not supposed to wear hats. He wore his hat anyway. Always got his hat taken. He'd come back the next day with another hat. He dressed like them cats from the Matrix. That's how he
Oh
dressed
yeah, yeah.
every day. He pressed his hair out like Snoop.
And it's funny. Even a lot of like the white people don't even fuck with goths. Like, they think goths are like too weird. Even for them. Like,
Yeah,
so it's like in the black community, of course, if you dress that way, but if you just listen to the
right. Because they
music,
did make fun of the goths in like those teen shows, right? Like
yeah,
they wear the
exactly.
pale makeup and they're like this, got piercings and shit. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the truth is, a lot of these people wanted to dress that way because they wanted to signal that they weren't like the other. Because you could perfectly listen to the stuff and hang out and not go so over the top with the fashion. But these people, they would hang out with white people and they would put on the whole pageantry. And part of the reason why people also didn't fuck with a lot of these people, to be honest, is that they hung out with no black people. But if you listen to them talk about it, they'll act like the black people rejected them, but they always kind of walked around with the air like they were better than the other
And
black people.
I try to explain that to people. Like, I don't think they realize how condescending they were probably talking to other kids. And they think the rejection was merely because of the shit that they liked or what they were into. And it wasn't that. They might have used that to clown you, but that's
Yeah,
not really what it was. Because this is the thing, if you wasn't weird, people still fucked with you. You know,
yeah,
even if you was poor. I was poor. They clown me all the time being poor. You know what
yeah,
I mean? I still had friends. You know, that never stopped me from making friends.
yeah,
Um, on top of that, people also be holding on to that shit from childhood. I think that's just super childish. You
yeah. They
know,
hold
we
on to
were
it
all
big time.
kids. We all got clowned. Like, who didn't? Like, relax. But I thought that's it for me. Did you have anything else, T?
Nope, nope. That's all I had. You know what? This was long enough, so this will take place for the Wednesday one, I think, unless
Yeah.
something happens. Yeah. We're supposed to do a regular Wednesday one, but I think we'll just make this one. But going forward, we're gonna go back to the Wednesday stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks, Vita.
All right,
And
thanks, guys. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, and also I noticed on YouTube now they want you to put the notification. So
yeah,
please let us notify you when we're on. So put the so like, subscribe, share, but also put your notifications on. And we also have a Patreon. If you look at this ticker at the bottom, you'll see where you can find us. We're literally champagne sharks on everything, so you can find us on Patreon, PayPal, Venmo, everything. So
yeah.
if you want
Just go to
PayPal, it's
champagnesharks.com and you'll get the links to everything in one place as well.
right there. All right, guys. Good night.
All right, be good.